morning and welcome to the coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, brought to you by Canadian Running Magazine. I'm Mihira Lakshman along with Michael Doyle on this great Sunday morning, and it's a bit rainy outside, but Michael, the wind seems to not be a factor today.
Yeah, all things considered, Mihira, we were expecting the weather to be a huge a factor in how this race was going to be run this week. But last night, seemingly out of nowhere, the wind died down to nearly nothing, and what was supposed to be 35 km/h winds now is a negligible 15.
And there is a new course, as you saw a map just up on the screen there. The course goes through some of Toronto's nicer neighborhoods, Little Italy, Yorkville. These are neighborhoods that the race didn't see last year, so the runners will have some new neighborhoods to go through. As we take a look at some of the contenders in this field, Michael, probably looking really at the Kenyans and the Ethiopians on both the men's and women's side. We've got Gilbert Yegon from Kenya on the men's side, who's probably one of the favorites with 2:06 marathon best. Charles Munyeki, John Kiprotich, Suraj Jena, and Felix Limo as well. But don't count out some of the other Ethiopians, Batuna Warga and Batura Sege.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If you're just joining us, it's Mihira Lakshman alongside Michael Doyle.
Yeah, if this all really depends on how this race is run. If we have a fast race where the elite East African runners are attempting to go after the record, which they very well may today with these conditions, we could see a 2:07 race. And if it becomes a 2:07 race, it may eliminate some of these guys that have only ever cracked into the 2:10, 2:09 range. I would look for guys like Yegon and Kiprotich to go out hot and to try to control the race from the onset.
Well, that's looks like what we're seeing right now. As you can see, Yegon and Kiprotich right near the front as the race is just underway. Of course, the pacers will get out front and break the wind for these runners. There are some Canadians to watch in this field too. On the men's side, Rob Watson as well as Matt Loisel. Both of them are gunning for that World Championship standard, trying to get under 2:15. Watson has run 2:13 in the past, while Loisel's best is 2:16. So, Michael, those are, if we're looking for Canadians on the men's side, probably we'll be watching for those two folks.
Oh, absolutely. I spoke to Rob Watson on Friday, and he said that he feels like something in the 2:11s, 2:12s is a possibility for today if the weather cooperates. Loisel apparently is quite fit as well, trains in the west end of Toronto in the High Park area, and he feels like he can run with Watson at this point, and both of them want to do something big today.
As we take a look at the lead men here, they're just going down University Avenue past the hospital there in downtown Toronto. And we should mention the women to watch as well. Another group of Kenyans and Ethiopians, Agnes Kiprop of Kenya, Jerusalem Kuma of Ethiopia, Sylvia Skortsova of Russia could break them up. Don't count out Mary Davies of New Zealand either. She seems to be entering this race in the best shape of her life, Michael.
She's an interesting runner. She's from New Zealand, as you said, lives in Ottawa, trains in Ottawa, and has, over the past few years, changed things up, especially in the last year. Feels like she's in the shape of her life, wants to get under 2:30.
And the Canadians to watch on the women's side, Lanny Marchand, who ran a stellar personal best of 2:31.51 in Rotterdam, and Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario, whose personal best is 2:32.06, also from Rotterdam. Both of them have said that they will try to challenge Sylvia Ruger's Canadian record of 2:28.36.
This might be the most exciting storyline in this entire race. If they can get under 2:30, and especially if they can break that Canadian record, which has stood for over 25 years, I think it'll make for a really exciting day here in Toronto.
I think so too, and they both said they're going to go out aggressively, so we'll keep an eye on that. Right now we're on the lead men as they come past the first kilometer, right around 3 minutes. So they're running. They're looking for a 2:07 type pace. overall here, and that's really what the Toronto Waterfront Marathon has become over the past couple of years. It's becoming a 2:07 marathon. We saw Kenneth Mungara of Kenya win it just a couple of years ago in the record time of 2:07:58. He, of course, is a 4-time champion of this race, not running today, so it is wide open for a new winner today.
Alan Brooks wanted to bring in some guys with a lot of potential and serious speed, because this race, this course, even though it has changed this year, it's supposed to be just as fast as in the past. I really like the changes. I run in the area myself. I'm very familiar with this. There's not a whole lot of hill to deal with. Basically, only in the first few kilometers, you have to do a very slight climb up University, and then after that, it's flat or downhill the entire course.
Now we're taking a look still at the lead men here, and a little bit far back, if you look in the distance on the right side of your screen, you can see Canadian Reid Coolset. He is one of the pacers in this race. He, of course, represented Canada in the Olympic Marathon in London, one of 3 Canadians in that race. Coolset had a great race at this race last year. He qualified for the Olympics with a 2:10:55. Today, he's pacing his friend, Kenyan Stephen Chelimo. Chelimo was Coolset's pacer last year.
Yeah, I think this is a really great story, and really smart for Alan Brooks to bring these guys back together in this race. Coolset came to Chelimo after he helped him qualify for the Olympics, and he said, "What is it that I can do to give back to you?" And apart from giving him a gift, which was, I believe, an iPad, which is a pretty good gift, Chelimo asked if he could pace him through 25K in a sub 2:10 pace, and it looks like he's settling in comfortably right now. They're being very smart, not getting carried away, staying a little bit behind the lead pack, and trying to create their own groove.
That's right, and Coolset said to me on Friday that he's going to try to take him through in the half marathon around 64:30-ish. Not a jog by any stretch, but certainly within Coolset's capability to do comfortably. And we've got Coolset will be going up until 25K, and he's going to be trying to stay right in front of Chelimo to break the wind as best as he possibly can. So we're just taking a look at the lead men still here. They're in the early portions of the race, running down, looks like Wellesley, down towards the Church and Wellesley district. As you can see on the map here, this is part of the new Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon route, and the runners will be making their way towards Church and Wellesley, which is in Toronto's vibrant LGBT community. As they pass the 2-kilometer split there, right around 6 minutes for the first 2K, just a little bit over, a hair over 6 minutes. And as I mentioned, they're going through Church and Wellesley. This is a vibrant community of Toronto where they're going to be greeted by some very colorful costumes, including the drag queen Donna Rama. So keep an eye out for that as the runners go by through Church and Wellesley and they head north to Bloor Street. Again, taking a look at some of the cheering sections alongside, and you can see people very excited. There are many colorful displays on there. And Michael Gilbert Yegon, he is certainly one of the favorites going into this race, as we mentioned, with a personal best of 2:06. He looks like he's, definitely right up at the front, looking to push the pace as much as he can, alongside John Kiprotich, another top Kenyan in this race.
Yegon burst onto the scene. He's still only 23 years old. He burst onto the scene in 2009 and ran a huge debut with that 2:06 time, winning Amsterdam. And not only did he win Amsterdam, at the time there was a lot of buzz because he broke the great Haile Gebrselassie course record at that race, and it sort of instantly put him on the map. Since then, he's had some up and down races. He ran very well last year, so they're hoping today that he will be one of the contenders that will go after this course record.
Now the runners are just making their way up to Bloor Street, where they're going to make a left turn onto Bloor, and this is the first time, as we've been mentioning, that this route has taken these runners to Bloor, which is an important stretch in Toronto, so they really get a chance to see the city and the heart of the city. They will be running by one of the nicest shopping districts, Yorkville, some very expensive designer high-end stores, and they'll go past the Royal Ontario Museum and Michael Chin's famous crystal. So plenty of sights to see here as we take a look at the lead men. They're all still very much bunched. They're running around 3 minute per kilometer pace. Now we take a look at the masses. Over 20,000 runners are taking part in the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon and Half Marathon and 5K events. So, it certainly is a big day for the running community, Michael. Many of them trying out for the first time what it's like to be in a race.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I actually ran my very first race as a road race as an adult at this event several years ago, and this event it has become a world-class event. It's really exciting. It brings people from all across Canada and now across the world to run this race, and it's amazing that they're getting upwards of 20,000 people participating in the various events over the weekend.
We do have, as we mentioned, the 5K going on. Started just about half an hour before the start of the marathon and half marathon, and one of the most famous runners involved in this event is Fauja Singh, a 100-year-old runner who is taking part in the 5K and certainly has a big local following around here.
He is actually 101 years old at
right.
this race. He was 100 last year, and when he ran the marathon and set the world record as the oldest man to have ever completed the distance. And he was actually just in Surrey, BC a couple of weeks ago, running with the mayor of Surrey and the huge Sikh community out there. The guy is well traveled, only picked up running as a senior citizen. Really amazing story and very inspirational guy.
So you can see the rain has made the streets quite slick and quite wet, so it's something to watch for as we go on throughout the day. There's a look at Reed Coolset pacing the Group B. As we mentioned before, it looks like Felix Limo is there and Stephen Chalimo, along with Hilary Chinonge. Hilary is a training partner of Wesley Korir, Boston Marathon champion, who will be joining us later on in this broadcast. Again, Reed Coolset, one of 3 Canadians who represented Canada at the Olympic Marathon in London and really made a name for himself at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon a couple of years ago when he ran 2:11, then last year dropped it down to 2:10.
Last year's race was so exciting. I actually was wondering what the race organizers were going to do to outdo themselves from last year with the Olympic, the unofficial Canadian Olympic qualifying trials. But this year they brought together probably their deepest field ever, and it's like it could be a track meet out there today.
And Michael, we just saw a picture of the Royal Ontario Museum and the famous Michael Chin crystal there. So they're just going through the posh shopping district of Yorkville before they head south towards the U of T and then through Little Italy. Again, new neighborhoods that are featured. This race takes us through 12 neighborhoods in Toronto, and each neighborhood has a sponsor and each neighborhood has sponsored runners. So some local talent to cheer on as they make their way through the city streets. Now, still taking a look at the lead men here. We've got John Kiprotich is up there. We've got Gilbert Yegon, Suraj Jena. The main players, they're all still involved here. Nothing expected to really take place in the first 5 or 10K as they all try and stay within themselves.
The Ethiopian Suraj Jena is an interesting character. He's in interviews, he can be very well spoken. He has got a good sense of humor, and he adding to that sense of humor, when he won Rome a couple of years ago, they were feting the anniversary of the 1960 Summer Olympics, where the great Ethiopian Bekele won barefoot, and so they were offered 5,000 euros to the winner to take his shoes off and cross the finish line barefoot. And Suraj Jena did win the race, took his shoes off with 500 meters to go, maybe cost himself a PB that day because he was only 8 or 10 seconds off of his previous personal best at that race, but did so. It's quite a video you can watch on YouTube. So
we just saw them pass the 4K mark. They're still running roughly 3 minutes per kilometer, which is around 2:07 marathon pace. So the pacers are doing a good job right now, keeping it fairly consistent at this early point. We'll have to watch later on to see how consistent that pace is. It could be a factor as we move forward in this race. But right now, moving right along at 3 minutes per kilometer, so this is exactly what they were hoping for. You can see the pacers that are out front. They are lined up two abreast, and you can see the runners now behind them pretty much trying to draft off each other's shoulder. That's really the most efficient way to run, and over the course of the marathon, you have to do everything you possibly can to conserve energy. So you will see these runners move back and forth, taking turns, drafting off of each other, working together as best as they can, and trying to use the pacers to do a lot of the work.
This is a nice little stretch here. It's a slight downhill grade. It's very, very fast. I wouldn't be surprised to see this kilometer split be one of the quicker ones in the race. And it seems as though the weather is cooperating. There's probably a little bit of a front-facing wind.
There's some cheerleaders from the University of Toronto as we now take a look at the back of the pack runners and going past the Yorkville cheering section there near the Royal Ontario Museum. Now we're back up at the front with the lead men. They're running through the University of Toronto campus right now down St. George Street. Soon they'll be making their way onto College Street, heading towards Little Italy. Right now you can see them passing a water station. Many of them are bypassing this. Some of them are taking drinks. It's important to drink early and drink often in the marathon. I think we probably just saw the pacers bypass the water station, so that's not a huge deal. It looks like everyone is taking their bottles. And Michael, they have elite water bottles here. They have their own little concoction of what they need, don't they?
They do. It really depends on what you like. Most runners these days stick with some form of energy drink, something that they've used in training for months and years at this point. They know it sits well in the stomach because that can become a very serious issue in the latter stages of the race. I did notice that a few of the runners, Warga being one of them, skipped the elite table, but then opted for just straight water from the recreational runners table, which I think is kind of interesting. It is about 18 degrees at the start, so it is a little bit warm for running, but it's deceptive because of that slight rain that we've got right now.
Now, we just saw the lead runners pass the 5K split in about 15:05, so that's again about 3:01 per kilometer, right around 2:07 mid-marathon pace. They're on a good clip right now, running fairly consistently, but I think that last kilometer was a little bit quicker, just under 3 minutes, so they're going to have to be careful on how much they pick it up in these early stages as we see the runners make their way down College Street now.
Yeah, they're cruising along at a really good pace. This could provide for a record time today, although it's obviously extremely early right now. But you got to get out fast. You've got to, when you're going for, when you're splitting hairs to get that 2:07, 2:06 marathon, you need to set a devastating pace right from the onset.
That's right. It really appears to the layperson that they're going flat out from the beginning, but for a normal person to even keep up with them for a 3-minute kilometer probably would be impossible. So these runners certainly are world-class athletes, and in a marathon, there is no holding back at this level. They have to push the pace from the start if they want to have a fast time. They'll look to run around an even split or maybe a slightly positive split, but very rarely will you see a negative split in the marathon.
All of these guys are going out and they're looking for a breakthrough. These are hungry up-and-coming runners, guys that do have the talent. They do, and then they're looking to break into the upper echelon. We are no longer in the old days now. The days of Felix Limo, the mid-2000s, even a couple of years ago, where a 2:08, a 2:07 would win almost every single race. We're now in this 2:04, 2:05 phase, and maybe even 2:03, where a lot of these young and up-and-coming runners are just giving it everything to see if they can get into that area.
And Michael, they're running on a slight downhill right now, down Bathurst towards the lake, and once they hit Lake Ontario, they're going to be going down the Lakeshore Boulevard, which is where they might be a little bit exposed to the elements and a little bit exposed to the wind. This course has a lot less of lakeshore than it did last year, so it shouldn't be as bad, but that's something to keep an eye on. Now we take a look at a bit of the cheering sections throughout the course. We're expecting about 150,000 spectators throughout this course to be cheering the runners on. You can take a look at them now, the lead men going over the train tracks, going over the GO train tracks, still down Bathurst as they head towards the lake.
Yeah, they're about to pass the fort here, Fort York, and a big historical building in terms of the War of 1812, and it's actually, this is the Yonge Street 10K course here, the last kilometer of it, and this is a little bit of a quick downhill here. They're going to get quite a bit of speed going down as they pass the 8K here. Now
they're onto the Lakeshore Boulevard as they approach the CNE, Canadian National Exhibition, and Prince's Gate, and that's where they should be greeted by a number of different cheering sections from the Liberty Village group. That's one of the 12 neighborhoods featured here. This one is sponsored by St. Christopher House. So a lot of support is expected for these runners. Right now you can see it's a bit of a lonely stretch, but they will encounter the spectators. They can really get into a nice rhythm though here. It's flat, there may be some wind, but we haven't noticed too much wind when you compare it to last year. They're just passing another water station here, and we'll see how many of them reach for their bottles. Many of them running right past it, but they all appear to be very comfortable at this point. We've got Gilbert Yegon, Batuno Sege, and Suraj Jena, along with Batuna Warga. So a couple of Ethiopians, a couple of Kenyans, and a few Pacers. I'm actually really surprised to see that the group is this large. I mean,
Yegon and Kiprotich are coming into this race a step ahead of a lot of these other guys, and everyone else is running to their ability right now. So they are dictating the race, dictating the pace. A few of these guys are going to break at some point, although it's quite early still.
And at these early stages, they're still in the first 10K of this race. They should be very well within themselves. They shouldn't be pushing their heart rate up, and they should be running a very controlled effort. You don't want to do any work before 20K, definitely. And you certainly don't want to be feeling any strain. So this is why these runners do all those long runs and all those long tempo runs, to teach their bodies how to run quickly while relaxed.
The danger, though, with the marathon, and the reason why the marathon is such a devilish distance, is that this pace should feel easy for all of these guys, even a guy slightly slower, even some of the Canadian elite men that are going after the 2:12, 2:11 pace. In the first 10K, this 3-minute kilometer pace should feel well within their aerobic limit. However, it's when you cross over, say, about 30 kilometers that things start to change and your body starts to play tricks on you and you start to shut down mentally and physically. And we'll see what happens when we get to that point. But for now, everybody's looking fairly smooth.
Now, we're still with the elite men, the leaders of the men's race. We, of course, will be bringing you parts of the women's race, and we'll talk about the Canadian story as well. In the men's race, two Canadians that we've been talking about, Rob Watson and Matt Loisel, we're interested to see how they do. Loisel said he wants to run faster than 2:15 to make that World Championship standard, and Watson wants to run faster than his personal best of 2:13, so we'll keep an eye on them. And of course the women, Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchant, both looking to break 2:30 and perhaps approach the 2:28.36 of Sylvia Ruger's Canadian record. So we'll keep an eye on that. But right now we're still focused on the men's race. The leaders now running past the Canadian National Exhibition, and it is a relatively big group still, and the Pacers look very comfortable. Everyone seems to be doing their job well here. The rain perhaps letting up slightly, but still a very wet course for these runners to deal with.
They're out onto a portion of the course that I actually quite like. It's a little quieter out here. They've had all of the fanfare and the intensity of running through a city center of a major city in the first 8 or 9K, and now they're out into this. It's still quite nice out here on the lakeshore, but the and the pavement is very smooth. It's very good for running extremely flat. They might be facing quite a bit of that southwest wind right now, but it's only 15K. But this is the portion of the race where the guys who are going to have a good day get comfortable, and those who might struggle start to notice or start to get an idea or a little bit of feedback from the body of what's going to happen in the future.
Now, as we've been mentioning, they're running roughly around 3 minutes per kilometer pace, which is right around 2:07 marathon pace. And Gilbert Yegon, one of the contenders that we've been talking about, he's right up there in the lead group along with John Kiprotich and Batuna Warga of Ethiopia. But Yegon, he has an interesting story. He has the top personal best in this field. He actually trained with Stephen Kiprotich of Uganda, the Olympic champion, and so certainly has a strong training group to push him forward, Michael. And he has battled injuries, but he looks to be back in fine form after a 2:07 at the Vienna Marathon.
He's sort of yo-yoed back and forth over the past few years. I think after he ran that 2:06.18 in 2009, he actually said after the race that he felt he could have even run in the 2:05s because he was having leg cramping in the last 5 kilometers, even though his split was excellent in the last 5 kilometers. So he's definitely got speed. He's probably one of the faster guys that we're going to see at this event over the next few years. But he has gone back and forth a little bit. He's had a tough time, for example, at Boston. He only did a 2:21, which he was very disappointed in 2010. And then he came back in 2011 and he ran a 2:13, but still that's well out of his ability level. And that was on a very, very good day weather-wise. So.
Now we see them passing another water station, and Yegon grabs his bottle and starts to put in a bit of a surge. It's not uncommon for us to see a bit of surging around the water stations, perhaps a little bit of gamesmanship, trying to get a leg up on the others. It is still very early in this race, though. You can see Batuna Warga of Ethiopia as well in there, John Kiprotich. They're all in the mix here. And Warga is an interesting case, too, because he comes into this race with a 2:09 personal best from Venice in 2010, but this year he ran a 2:11.25 in Paris. He's not exactly 2:07 material yet, but perhaps he thinks that he can get pulled along here, or at least draft off these guys at this pace.
Well, they just split at 30 minutes 10 seconds, so that's still very, very quick. We're looking at that's a sub 2:07 or just there around 2:07 pace. So this might get pretty hot for some of these guys that are more of a 2:09, 2:10 runner.
Right. As they continue along at this pace, if we'll see how they get dropped and how this group starts to whittle itself down. They're still on a very flat stretch. This, of course, is a fairly flat route on the whole. This is definitely the flattest part of the route as they run along the lakeshore, and they will be making a turn right around Lakeshore and Windermere and then heading back east. They're still heading west at this point, and it looks like most of them are fairly comfortable. We can see Suraj Jena of Ethiopia right there tucked in behind the Pacers. John Kiprotich is right there. As we mentioned, Batuna Warga also right along there. And we can see, actually we can't see Group B anymore. That's the group that's being led by Canadian Reed Coolset. He's pacing Stephen Chilimo, his Kenyan friend who paced Coolset last year, so a bit of payback by the Canadian there. Not on their screen right now, but certainly a story that we will keep an eye on as we focus now on the lead men as they try and stay in a rhythm here. And I guess really it's about doing as little work as possible, trying to stay as relaxed as they possibly can.
The Pacers seem to be doing a really good job. The paces have been fairly even but very quick. And as you noticed, as they're going through, they went through the water station a couple of 100 meters back. The Pacers took a little bit of fluid for themselves, but held on to the bottle, offered it around to the guys around them to see if they needed anything, because often the elites will go through. They're going very fast. They're tucked into a tight group, and they're not able to get to the water station themselves. So that's a little bit of a good heads-up move by the Pacers.
Now, Michael, we also see Kenneth Kimutai of Kenya just on the right side of your screen behind the Pacers, he's someone to keep an eye on. He doesn't have a very strong marathon personal best, a 2:12 marathon personal best, but he does have a 27:16 10,000 meter best from Eugene, Oregon in 2008. So he's a bit of a wild card here. We don't quite know what to expect, but he certainly believes that he can be in there in the mix for a top 3 finish here. Whether or not he's going out too strong, it perhaps is too early to say, but you know, we did mention that these runners are running, they ran right around 30:02 or 30:0 something for 10K, which is still around 3 minutes per kilometer and still on 2:07 pace. So we'll have to see how this group gets withered down in the second part of this race.
Yeah, it seems like it's shaking out the way that you would expect it to at this stage. It's still extremely early. You're going to have a couple of pretenders that are going to hang around and see if something will happen for them. A lot of these guys that do run in the 212, 210, 209 level put in some good training, some solid training. They train with some of the best runners in the world in places like Iten. And they're just looking for the breakthrough, so maybe it's his day today. We'll find out.
We'll find out, and certainly everyone seems to be quite comfortable, and I would imagine that many of these runners come into this race wanting a 2:07 because that's what this race has become. It has become a 2:07 marathon, which is what I think has attracted many international runners, top runners, to want to come to run Alan Brooks's Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. If you're just joining us, it's Mihira Lakshman alongside Michael Doyle. We're bringing you the coverage courtesy of Canadian Running Magazine. And now we're taking a look at the Canadian women in Group B of the women's race. We can see Mary Davies from New Zealand on the left there. Right next to her in the hat is Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario. They're following a pace group, and Michael, I think that's one of your training partners that appears to be helping with the pacing there.
That's my training partner, Dan Way. He's actually just running the half, and he's looking to run somewhere in the 114 range. So he's out there pacing them. He said he was going to help break with the wind. I know that one of the other pacers is Réjean Chasson, and I'm not sure where he is. He's not on camera right now.
He must be just off of our screen, perhaps. But we do know that Réjean Chasson is helping to pace Krista Duchesne's group. And there you can see a great look at Krista Duchesne. She's a mother of 3 children and seems to have gotten faster with every child she bears. We had a feature on her in the September issue of Canadian Running Magazine, and she talks about how she really feels childbirth made her stronger. And she has she's not shy about talking about her faith in God as being a motivating factor for her, and definitely helped her to her 2:32 personal best in Rotterdam. There we see Réjean Chasson in the Brooks singlet going to the front of that group there, helping with the pacing. And there you see Krista Duchesne and Mary Davies go by. They're looking very strong at this point, still early on in the women's race, and looking for a split around 74 minutes for the half marathon, as she hopes to break Sylvia Ruger's Canadian record.
It looks to me like Eleni Marchant is dropped off the pace a little bit. I think she's a few seconds behind there. I think we caught a glimpse of her there a few seconds ago.
That's right, Lanny Marchant of London, Ontario, Canada's top-ranked female marathoner. A little bit off the pace here. Probably nothing to be concerned too much about as they pass 13K. Krista Duchesne talked a little bit about how nice it's going to be to run in Toronto since she is from Brantford. She's got a lot of friends around here. We will take a look at the lead women that we're being told is being led by Agnes Kiprop and Arusalam Kuma, as you saw Kuma's picture just up on the screen there. Now we're back with the lead men. John Kiprotich, you can see there. We've got John Kimutai, Gilbert Yegon, Batura Warga. They're all still in the mix here. No one is really getting dropped so far, and they're trying to stay as tightly bunched with the pacers as they can, but you can see a little bit of a gap opening up there, and they're probably just going to be closing that down. It looks to be just getting a little bit bunched up now.
Yes, sometimes the group can slow a little bit, and it's the pacer's job just to keep the pace, to keep the agreed upon pace for the lead group, and let the group do the work to get back up to the front. It could just be that one of the guys in the front of the group here just kind of slowed things down a little bit for a couple of seconds. Here we go. We've got Kiprotich who's going to close this gap back up here and force everybody to come with him.
Yeah, Kiprotich is definitely taking charge here. There's a bit of erratic running, but perhaps nothing too severe here. We'll ask Wesley Korir about this when he comes to join us, about what he thinks of pacing and if he'll ever, go in front of a pacer if he's not sure that the pace is accurate. But you can see the runners now passing another water station and passing some more fans alongside the road. Good look there at Kenneth Kimutai rather, and John Kiprotich, and you can see Gilbert Yegon in the mix. There is Batura Warga in the Adidas shirt, and runners still running right around 3 minutes per kilometer as we move towards the halfway point.
I find it interesting that Warga is opting to go for just the straight water from the water cups in the water station and not go for his own personalized fuel bottle. It's interesting. I'm not really sure why that's happening.
Yeah, it's possible that he might not have been in the right position to grab his bottle, or maybe he decided that he didn't want it. That's interesting too. But it's something that we'll notice in the later stages of this race, how the fueling played a role. It's something to keep an eye on in the second part.
Absolutely. In a day like today, where it really depends on what kind of how your body reacts to heat and humidity. For someone training in North America, it's 18, maybe even going to go up to about 20 with a fairly significant humidity level if the rain does stop, and we will see heat become a bit of a factor. But for these East Africans, especially those that have just come over this week, this could actually be cold. As we noticed, Warga was wearing a t-shirt and a winter hat, which to me seems like overkill, but for him, maybe he found it very, very cold in the start line today.
Yeah, you're seeing a few of these runners wearing toques or hats to keep themselves warm. Remember, they train in East Africa, where they're probably not used to these types of conditions. That said, it's not too cold out today, but when you're wet, you can get colder. One thing that I noticed, though, is that when it's raining, you often want to wear less clothing so it doesn't accumulate water. But you got to do whatever is going to be comfortable, obviously. As we take a look at this group here, they're very bunched now. They have they're making their way east on Lakeshore at this point, and long stretch of flat ground here. Perhaps they'll get into a nice little rhythm and settle in.
Yeah, they're looking really smooth. Things are looking very good right now. We've got a nice thick pack of guys. It's really anybody's ball game still. They have created quite amount of separation from Chilimo, along with his pacer Reed Kulisette and others. Someone in this group is going to win this race, and it's going to be very pensive for the next several kilometers. I would imagine that it won't evolve until at least 30k. Everyone seems to be holding their own quite nicely.
And those pacers should take these runners right around to 30k, and that's when, as you mentioned, Michael, we'll probably start to see some dramatics as the pacers drop off and we see the tactics play out among the runners. There we see Yegon and Sege running side by side. There's the two pacers right in front of them. Their stride looks incredibly efficient, and that's the typical Kenyan stride there that I think is such a model for many of us. So effortless and so quick and powerful too.
Yeah, proper, very economic stride, doesn't waste a lot of energy. Where in the later stages of the race, when you get tired, you get sloppy, your form falls apart.
So now we're taking a look at Reed Kulisette, who's pacing his friend Stephen Chilimo. And of course, Chilimo paced Kulisette last year, so Kulisette doing a bit of a favor for him this year. We do have a clip of Stephen Chilimo that we'll be able to hear a little bit more from before the race.
My name is Stephen Chilimo from Kenya, and last year I was contracted here to come to face for the group, and after reaching here I was told to face for Canadian Kai, and now I come here for my first marathon. It will be a great challenge for me because I assisted him last year and I wanted to face for me, so I think it's a kind of friendship, to say thanks for what I did last year. So for me, I would say also thanks to assist me to achieve my goals in marathon, because it is my first marathon. I cannot say I want to run sub 2:6 or what. My first goal is to finish marathon 8 sub 2:10. I would be happy to run sub 2:10. So I will not say that I need 2:6 before. First of all, I depend on the parachute. First is to finish marathon.
And we're very pleased to be joined with former Boston Marathon champion Wesley Korir. Wesley, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here.
So Wesley, tell us a little bit about what goes through your head when you see the thousands of people coming through a finishing chute. They may be walking, running slowly, but you know, how do you feel about seeing so many people out for a race?
It's amazing. It's amazing to see these people who have given all their time to train and do all this, especially for charity and all that. So it's good to be on the other side of the race. You know, I'm always the one in the course running, but it's fun to be here and cheer these people and see them battle through the finish line.
Now, Wesley, you won the Boston Marathon. There are thousands of people that love to try to qualify for that race, and people that really celebrated that victory with you.
Yeah.
What was that like for you when you crossed the finish line in Boston, winning that historic race?
It was amazing. I think it was to me it was something that unbelievable. You know, to be among the Boston Marathon champion, that will remain in history book forever. And I'm just blessed to be part of that elite group that have joined that amazing group of people that have won Boston Marathon. Boston is an amazing course, amazing area, amazing city. So much about the marathon. They spend so much time and money and everything into that race. It's an historical race. I always say all these other races happen because of Boston Marathon, because most of these people go to other marathons with an intention of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. So it's a very, very big race. So to be a winner of that race means a lot to me.
Do you think that you put that up there as one of the top moments of your career?
Oh, definitely. I think it's one of the best moments of my career, and I think I will live to cherish that moment. I think it's an amazing experience that I've had.
So you grew up in Kenya, you went to university in Louisville, Kentucky, and you also have a connection to the to Canada. Tell us about your connection to Canada.
My wife is from Canada. You know, I went to school with her in Louisville, Kentucky, and you know, we live here a couple of times. We go to Kenya most of the times, and we in America sometimes. You know, so it's an amazing experience.
So now we just got our first look at the women's race. You saw, I think we saw Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchand go by there.
Yes.
And Michael, you had some observations there?
Yeah, they were tucked behind the pacers, and my training partner Dan Way was also helping them break the wind as well. And they look good. We haven't gotten a split yet, so we don't know exactly what's happening. But I was talking to Réjean Chasson, who is an elite Canadian runner, on Saturday, and he said that they wanted. He's one of their pacers. He said they wanted to pace the first half in around 1:14. To put them well within that area to hit that 2:28 time. Wesley, when you race, do you like an even split race, or do you just kind of go by the seat of your pants and see what happens on the day?
I think mostly an even pace is a good one, because especially in a day like this, whereby it's hot, it's very humid, but it's also very rainy. You know, when you fluctuate those pace up and down is really dangerous, because you might find yourself cramping up, and your muscles are not used to that because of the heat and the cold of the rain. So I think an even pace would be good. And you know, we see the women right now there in Samoa really pushing the pace really hard by herself. That's really, you know, very courageous for her to do that because of the wind and the rain. But you know, somebody like Lenny is in really good shape. You know, she came to Kenya, she lived with us for a little bit in Kenya. I ran with her a little bit, did an 18-mile tempo long run with her in Kenya, and she's a really, really wonderful lady that I think she has the work ethic of training is very, very high in her, and I'm hoping she will do something great today, but I think she will.
Yeah, you mentioned Samoa of Kenya. She has a personal best of 2:26. She's currently leading that race, but Lanny Marchant, she certainly does have a great work ethic, and she works at a day job as a lawyer, 60 hours a week, and trains at a high level. You know, that's something special as well, isn't it?
It is very special for somebody to do that. I remember when I started my career as a runner too, I used to have a full-time job. I used to work about 40 hours a week and train full-time. And it's very hard. Like I can tell you how hard it is, especially because it doesn't give you an opportunity to go out there and train the way you want and rest, because you're always thinking about the work that you have to do. Like she came to Kenya, and when she was in Kenya, she was still working. You know, she was still doing a job on computer. She goes running, and then she comes back, and she has like 2 or 3 hours whereby she has to be on a computer and turn in her work. So she's always working. So that just shows you how dedicated she is to this running, and it's amazing to see her do well.
She was in Kenya for the month of March and ran with yourself. Reed Coolset was there as well. Yeah. This was all in the lead up to Rotterdam in April last year, where she had her big breakthrough. How much do you gain from going to altitude and training in that environment in Kenya?
I think you gain a lot of experience, first of all, because when you go to Kenya, what you do is you're training with these Kenyans who are the best. You know, you're living with them. You know how they are interacting with them and doing all those things with them. So you gain experience and confidence, because when you come there, like Lenny, when she was there, she ran with me, and I ran with Reed Coolset too, and so it was amazing. It's an experience you gain.
And we're also talking about Krista Duchesne, one of the other Canadians in this race, and we had a chance to hear from her earlier on.
Krista lives in Brantford, and I want to ask you, you're an hour away from Toronto. So does this feel special to be racing in what is basically a hometown marathon for you?
Yes, obviously with 3 young kids, it's ideal that, yesterday we had an early dinner, packed the diaper bags, the lunches, and had a massage, and I was out of here in an hour traveling. So it's great to be so close to home and then have so many family and friends around as well.
Now you mentioned your children, and she has 3 children. If you want any lessons in time management, this is the lady to talk to. Krista, I have to ask you, did your children give you any advice or send any wishes along when you left to come down here?
Well, the baby obviously doesn't get anything. She doesn't understand. The 4-year-old is excited to stay in a hotel, and my 6-year-old has asked for $200 if I happen to win any prize money. So that's kind of what you get from kids. You just don't know.
That's wonderful incentive. Thank you very much.
And we're back now with our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Mihir Lakshman of Canadian Running Magazine, along with Wesley Korir, Boston Marathon champion, and Michael Doyle, web producer from Canadian Running Magazine. As we now take a look at the looks like the lead women, and we had a 10K split. Now we're a little bit behind, but it looks like the leaders went through 10K in 34:14. Wesley, that's a pretty quick pace.
Oh, that's a quick pace for women, especially. I think they're really moving. I think the women are really moving at an even pace, and they're surrounded with around a lot of men. So that gives them that leverage of they block the wind for them, and there's one guy behind and there are 2 guys in front. So they seem as if they're going really at an even pace, and a quick one too. That's really fast for women.
We're looking at Arisulam Kuma. She is from Ethiopia, and she has a 2:24 personal best. Right behind her, you see Bruce Deacon of Victoria. He's a 45-year-old who's a former Olympian for Team Canada. He's going after the Canadian record of 2:25, the age group record for 45-year-olds. So Bruce Deacon running right along with the lead women, and he has been around the running scene since the early 90s, and certainly one of Canada's greatest marathoners. He has the 2nd most sub-220 marathoners in Canadian history. So we just took a look at Arisulam Kuma's stats. Kuma and Adilo is up there, and Adilo from Ethiopia has a 2:29 best. So if she's going to hold at this pace, we'll perhaps get in there for a personal best. Today. As Wesley mentioned, they are tucked right behind the pacers, and they have male pacers, so take up a little bit more space and perhaps break the wind a little bit better.
Wesley, for somebody like Adilo here, who's tucked in behind the heavyweights. How risky is that to try to run sort of outside of yourself? I mean, obviously she's got to take the risk. She's running well right now, but what could happen here in the second half?
I think she's showing a lot of confidence. Maybe, you know, I think she believes in herself. I can see some confidence on her. You know, like the way she's looking down. Like her eyes are down. She's focused. She's looking at those women from behind. So she has a lot of confidence on herself. But you know, it depends. If she is in good shape, she can. That's a very good position to be tucked right behind the favorites and the fast girls, and still, you know, get them to pull you. You know, she's really in perfect position. But you know, anything can happen. You know, if she struggles in the second half, she'll have a long way to go because she'll be by herself. Because you can see there's nobody behind her and there's no other pacers behind her, so she'll be left by herself. That will be the risk if she gets dropped.
So it's a big gamble at that point for her then.
Wesley, the course in Toronto has changed a little bit. You spent a lot of time in Toronto. What do you think about this course here?
I think it's a really fast course. Flat, you know, it's really flat. And I think, you know, with a good weather here, you can pop a really fast one. I think it's an amazing course. Really nice, scenic. You know, you go by the lake and stuff. So it's a really good course that I think if the wind stays down, the rain now seems to have really gone down, and so if the wind stays down, I think we are going to see a really fast pace today.
Now we know that you ran a race in Toronto about a month ago, a 5K, the Yorkville 5K. You obviously won it, set the record. Can we expect to see you maybe running a marathon in Toronto Sunday?
Yeah, oh, definitely. In future, hopefully, I'll be able to, I'll be able to come here in future and be able to run one. It's a very good city, you know, and we live close by here. We have my wife has a lot of relatives here, a lot of friends come from here, so it would be a good place to one day, you know, get one here and just come here and celebrate being in Canada. It's a good country.
How is your running going now? Tell us about your goals, what you're looking to bring your personal best down to.
I think my running is going well. I just came back from Chicago about a week ago. A week ago I was running a Chicago Marathon where I finished 5th at 2:06:13. That's a 2-second PR. But I'm feeling really like right now I'm feeling very well. You know, I don't have any pain, anything recovered really well, which is a good sign for me to start my next training cycle.
Well, now we're taking a look at Adilo. Kuma seems to be, dropping Adilo, and we were just talking about Radia Adilo of Ethiopia. She has a 2:29 personal best, and perhaps in a little bit over her head in this lead pack. She might be getting dropped here, and I think it's going to be crucial for her to stick with the pack as long as she possibly can.
Yeah, and that will be the risk for her. I think if she gets dropped there, it will be really a long way to go. And I think they're surging, they're leaving her behind, and she has to stay with them if she has to keep that pace. But you can see the pace is really picking up.
You can see Agnes Kiprop and Kuma really pushing it to stick with the surge. It looks like Kiprop is leading that surge, pushing the pacers along with her.
I noticed that she did not take any fuel at that last station, so she must be thinking she's feeling good right now and wanted to make a little bit of a tactical move through that fueling station.
Bruce Deacon also with that group. Wesley, how dangerous is it if you skip a water station?
Very dangerous, especially a day like this whereby you have 99% humidity. Very dangerous. And a risky thing to do, especially earlier when you feel like you don't need it. And I always tell people, even if you feel like you don't need it, go for it. And you see, she's really pushing it too. I think she's opening a cup on the other lady.
You can see the intensity on the faces of these women. Agnes Kiprop, the lead woman right now, she has a best of 2:25:40. She recently ran a 67-minute half marathon. She is definitely trying to put the gears to Jerusalem Kuma, and Kuma looks to be getting dropped here. It's going to be interesting to see if this is going to be what will decide the women's race. You can see the intensity in their faces. They are hurting right now, and they still have a long way to go. Bruce Deacon trying to hang on with Kuma. If he can get pulled along to a fast time here, perhaps he could get close to 2:25. These women are probably looking to run somewhere around that pace.
Kuma might be lucky here because Deacon might do her a little bit of a favor by pushing her here, because he certainly does not want to lose this group either. You do not want to run the second half of your marathon alone, especially when you're trying to do something special, trying to break a record like Bruce Deacon is.
Yeah, and Kuma is really back. You can see that she reeled them back in, and that's a good sign for her. If she can come back and if she can stay there with Agnes, I think she will be good. But Agnes is really hammering, and I hope that missing out, deciding not to take our water bottle won't hurt her, towards the end of the race. But she looks good, and Kuma keeps coming back.
Now, how difficult is it, Wesley, when you see them getting gapped and then working hard to close that gap, then getting gapped again and working hard to close that gap?
It is a mental battle. I think right now what is happening here is a mental battle. I think you see Agnes is starting to pick up again. They're playing with her. They're pulling away, and then they're slowing down, and then she catches up with them, and then they pull away again. And that's really a tactical mental battle that she has to battle. You have to stay in the moment, and she has to stay and just keep them in sight so that she can be able to attack again. But you can see that they are opening up the gap again.
And this is the lead women, Agnes Kiprop, right behind her pacers, coming down Lakeshore, heading eastbound into the second half of the course. We do have a split now. This is the 17K split for the women, 58:55 for Agnes Kiprop, 58:15 rather, 58:15 for Agnes Kiprop at 15K.
Yeah, that's really fast. They are really moving. I think that's about 2:20, 2:22 marathon pace. So they are really moving. I think Agnes is going up here for a really good time, and she looks good. She looks relaxed. You can see those arms are down. She's not struggling. Her head is down, and her form looks really good. You can see like those legs, and she's lifting her legs really nice, and those especially. You keep an eye on those arms. If you see them raising their arms up, that means they're tiring up. But you can see that she's dropping them really nice and really in good shape.
And we're going to take a short break now as we continue our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
Float in the Adrenaline GTS 12.
Now we're back, coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Mihira Lakshman alongside Michael Doyle and Boston Marathon champion and 206 marathoner Wesley Korir. Wesley, we're looking at Agnes Kiprop. She looks very comfortable right now in the lead of the women's race. She's tucked in behind her pacers. How comfortable do you think it is for her at this point of the race, knowing that she's got a gap and she's got her two pacers left to help her?
I think she looks really good. She looks amazingly good. I think unless something really miserable happens, I think she's looking really to run a very good time. You see, she's relaxing her arms. That means she's really in that relaxed moment. I think she knows that she dropped Kuma, and now she has two guys. And just look at the focus on her face when she's running. She's looking like at the legs, at the heels of the pacers, which is really a very good thing to do if you're running behind somebody. Is don't look past them, look at their heels. And I think she's doing exactly that. She's focused and determined to take this to the finish.
Now they are running just past down the lakeshore through into the Harborfront neighborhood, and this is one of the 12 neighborhoods that is featured in the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. The sponsor of this neighborhood is Epilepsy Toronto, and a lot of major cheering section alongside the road for these women and the men as they come through. An interesting part of the course too, because the leaders get to see the mid-packers and the back of the packers go by them too, and the back of the packers get to see the leaders all at the same time. Now, we are seeing Agnes Kiprop, the women's leader. We mentioned that they're on about low 220 pace, 220, 222-ish. And Kiprop seems to have a gap over Jerusalem Kuma, who is running in second place. And you'll notice that there's also Bruce Deacon of Victoria, who is running along with her. He is going after the Canadian age group record for 45-year-olds of 225. We're along with Wesley Korir here. Wesley, tell us about the toughest part in the second half of the marathon that we should be looking towards. What's the wall that they're going to hit?
I think the toughest part of the second half is definitely 18 miles. If you get to 18, from 30K to 42K, that's when now the marathon, I always say that's when now the race starts. I think if she can hold this pace to 18 miles or 30K and maintain that pace like that for the rest of the 12K remaining, I think she will be running a good time. But honestly, right now she looks comfortable at the pace, but the race will start after 18 miles.
So right now they're going over the Spadina flyover, a slight hill. We do have a split now to tell you from the men's leaders. We're hoping to get the feedback soon, but the split for 20K, the men are through in 60-20. That's 1 hour and 20 seconds. That was a 30-12 last 10K. So the men at 20K at 60-20 for the leaders. So we'll just calculate that and let you know what pace they're on. But certainly, you know, it looks like they're doing quite well.
They're locked into a 2:07 flat pace right now. Which is good. It's very steady. They've come back down to earth. No, they're not dipping into the 206s, which is perhaps would be too risky for a day like today. We'll see if they can maintain that pace in the last half of the race.
Yeah, and that's close to halfway. So if they can maintain that 207 pace for the first part, and then see what they can do in the last in the next second part, I think that's a really good pace to maintain. They have been going 206, 207 pace. There's a moment whereby they went 205 pace, which I think was really risky for them, but now they seem to have settled at the 207 pace.
Now we're here with 206 marathoner Wesley Korir. It's such a privilege for you to join us. Canadian marathoning has really improved in the last couple of years. We talked about Krista Duchesne, Lanny Marchant in the women's race here. We've also got Rob Watson, who's a 2:13 marathoner, and Matt Loisel, a 2:16 marathoner in the men's side. But we had 3 Canadian Olympians, Reid Coulsett, Dylan Wykes, and Eric Gillis. Wesley, what do you think of the development of the Canadians in the marathon so far?
I think it looks bright. The future looks bright for the Canadian marathoning. I think with Reid Coulsett and all those guys, I think they're raising the bar for the next generation of marathoners. And I think if we maintain that, I think the next generation of the marathoners are coming. We have a lot of good runners running 5K, 10Ks right now, like Cam Levins. Hopefully, he's a guy that does a lot of mileage training. He will be a really super good marathoner in future. So when you see somebody like that, when I see somebody like that running really well in the 10K and the 5K, and you see his work ethics, the mileage that he puts in, he's training as a marathoner, so he will really transition well for the next level. So that shows that we have a generation that is coming up in Canada for marathon running, which really encourages us.
Now, your wife Tara is one of the country's top long distance runners. We really enjoyed cheering her on in the Canadian uniform. Will we ever get to see Wesley Korir in a Canadian uniform?
I don't know yet. I don't know. That's something that we'll leave for the future. But I'll do. I love my wife and I support her. Maybe one day she will switch to marathon. I don't know yet. But right now she's enjoying doing 5K and 10Ks. But I know Reid. I talk to Reid all the time. I support them in everything.
Now you've said that although you are a runner and a marathon runner, that's only one very small aspect of who you are as a person, and that you've got greater goals, and you feel like your purpose in this life is something beyond just running. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. I think to me, running is just a stepping stone that God has given me to go to the next level of my life. I think running is definitely not my life. Whenever I think about myself, I don't think I want to be remembered as the great runner, but I want to be remembered as that guy that changed the life. And you know, these people, like, you have about 25,000 people running here in Toronto with an intention of raising money for charities, and those are the most important people to me, that I think that they make the marathon. You know, we run, you know, you see we are right now looking at the elite runners, we run for, you know, for fun, we entertain people, but there are those people that run to change the lives of people, and that's what is important to me.
Excellent. So we've got Agnes Kiprop in the lead here. She seems to be running all by herself, tucked in behind her pacers. Wesley, these pacers, do they get a lot of feedback from the runner when you're tucked in behind them? Are you able to tell them pick up the pace a little bit, or are you just sort of going on a synergy that's happening between you and your pacers at that time?
Well, you can talk to them. I think you can talk to them and tell them, hey, I'm feeling good, let's move. But they also look at you, you know, like they feel you. Like now the way they're running, that's just perfect pacing right there. Those guys are doing a great job, and you know, you can feel the momentum, and you can tell them you're going too slow, go faster, or you're going too fast. But most of the time, what we always do as runners, let the pacers do their job. If you can let the pacers do their job, they can pull you into an amazing time.
So it looks like this is the finish of the men's half marathon that we're coming to. And it looks to be, the winner of the men's half marathon. As we look at this, I should mention that we do have a split from the men, the leaders of the men's marathon. They split the half marathon in 63:41, so they're on 2:07:20 pace. So they're still on, a decent clip, looking to get into that 2:07 range. As we see, that appears to be
someone from the London Pacers.
I think that's Matt Stacey from London, coming through in the half marathon. The winning time of the men's half marathon was 1:08:42. A nice run for these guys in the half marathon. Great to see a lot of spectators there. Sorry, this is Adam Stacey of the London Runners.
And it looks nice out there. The rain has really slowed down. You can see the flags. There's not that many wind. The wind is really good. I think it's gonna be a good day. I think the weather is not that bad. It's not that cold, that hot. And one of my fear today was the wind. But now you can see that the flags are really down. That means the wind is not really picking up that much. So that's a good sign.
So on the right of our screen in the yellow jersey, far right, we can see Joël Bourgeois, the Canadian, a long-time Canadian steeplechase champion. And he's a former Olympian in the steeplechase for Canada. He's running the half marathon here, looking for a strong finish, probably around 1:10 today. And as Wesley was mentioning, the rain has let up. It looks like the wind isn't a real factor. We could see these runners perhaps push it in the final 10K. Wesley, at this top level of marathoning, the splits, generally you're not going to see a negative split in a marathon, are you?
It depends. Some people are really negative split. But, in a day like today, it depends on how somebody feels. Especially when it gets to 18 miles, that's when now you can start feeling the rhythm. If you get that rhythm going, I think you can negative slip. We ran in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and we went 62:50 the first half, and then we went 61 the second half. So it was really, it was fast the second half. So.
And now we're back on the lead women. You can see Agnes Kiprop still running very comfortably behind her pacers.
Yeah, and she looks really relaxed. So it's good for her to stay there with those pacers, and those pacers can pull her. There's nobody around her. She's just her and the pacers, and now she just has to hold on to that pace, and she will be really in good time.
Let's take a look now at a pre-race interview we did with Agnes Kiprop.
Nilianza kukimbia nikiwa darasa la 7 Kararia Primary School kwa Maragwe District. Alafu nikaanza kukimbia kwa primary, alafu nikaenda secondary, nikakimbia kidogo, nikaenda leave, nikapata jana yangu wa kwanza Korir 2004 mwezi wa 8 tarehe 20. Alafu baada ya hiyo nikaanza tena kukimbia mwaka 2, nikakuja Itemi, nikakuja pata Sheila Chelagat 2007 mwezi wa 8 20. Alafu baada ya hiyo nikakimbia marathon yangu ya kwanza nilianzia Remis Marathon kwa mji wa Ufaransa. Kwa upande wa kwetu walifurahia sana maneno yangu na wakanisupport, wakanipea vijana wa kunichungia ng'ombe nikitoka nje, wa kunichungia watoto na hata maneno ya shamba. Tuniko na shamba sehemu mbalimbali, sasa wananichungia. Sasa walifurahia na kwao na support kitu kama kulipia watoto shule kama kuna mwenye hajiwezi. Kuhusu watoto yangu hao ndio wamenipea baraka, ndio nimekimbia mzuri juu yao. Asubuhi nikaamka na kumbuka hawa watakula nini, ndio nachikaza kutafutia hao vitu wakula.
And now we're back with our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. I'm Mihira Lakshman alongside Michael Doyle. We're from Canadian Running Magazine, and we have special guest Wesley Korir, a 2:06 marathoner, former Boston Marathon champion. He was 5th at the Chicago Marathon. So Wesley, tell us, right now Agnes Kiprop still running very comfortably. Do you see anything in her stride that concerns you, or does she look quite comfortable at this point?
I think at this moment she looks really comfortable. I think she's a lady that has a work ethic. She's a single mom with 2 kids, and she works on her farm. She does everything by herself. So she's really comfortable right now. She looks really, really comfortable. I think I really love the way she's looking down. She's focused. You can see that her eyes are looking at the heels of the pacers, and that's a really good sign that she's focused and just relaxed and just taking one step at a time. She's not looking ahead. She's looking at the moment, and at that step that she's taking at that moment. So that's really good sign.
It looked like she made her move right around 16, 17K. Started to drop Jerusalem Kuma at a water station, actually. Now Kiprop didn't take water there, so we're wondering if that might come back to hurt her. But making a move at a water station, surging at that point, is that quite common? Do you see that a lot?
Oh yeah, it's quite common. I think when people go for their water bottles, there's some people that uses that as an advantage to take off, and I think that's what she did. I'm just hoping that really she doesn't hurt her. She broke away really early. 17K, that's really, really early, and she will have the whole race with her by herself. But the good thing, she has the 2 pacers. But I just hope she goes for the water in the next water stop and start hydrating, because it's really humid out there.
Well, now we're taking a look at the course map. The women are now making their way east on Queens Quay. They're right around the 20K mark. And you could see the pacers there just gesturing with his right hand, telling Agnes to get right up on his shoulder, helping just with some encouragement there. This map of the marathon course takes us through 12 different neighborhoods in Toronto. Very scenic for the runners, and it's a bit new because it's a changed course from last year, so the runners do get to go through Church and Wellesley, they do get to go through Little Italy, and they go through Yorkville. So a lot of interesting sights and cheering sections for these runners to see as we take a look at the half marathon finish. And Michael, someone from your club.
That's Dave Clark from the Longboat Roadrunners in Toronto. I run with Dave. He's a tough big man. I think he's 6'4", and I'm sure he ran something around 117 just there.
Now we're back with Agnes Kiprop leading the women, and we've got a split for 25K for the men, 1:15:39 through 25K for the men, and we've also got a split for Krista Duchesne in the women's race, Canadian Krista Duchesne through the half marathon in 1:13:40.
1:15:29, that puts them a little bit under 2:07 pace, so those guys are really moving.
And so those guys are moving quickly. Just, I have to mention, Krista Duchesne, 1:13:40. She is on Canadian record pace at this point.
Absolutely, she's well under it at this point.
She's under 2:28 pace, so she's on 2:27 pace. So if she can hold this, Sylvia Ruger's Canadian record could be in jeopardy.
And that would be amazing to see a mom with 3 kids coming back, and breaking that record. I think that's just amazing work ethic right there. That's the thing about marathon. When there's something about marathoners and their work ethic, you know, to become the best marathoners in this world, you have to have that really strong work ethic of you know, working hard. You have to work really hard. And you see all these people. She's a single mom. Kiprop is a single mom with 2 kids, and she works in the farm, and she does all these things for herself. Translates into really hard work in marathons. You know, Christina Duche, you know, she's a mom with 3 kids. So being a parent of 3 kids is not easy, but she can be able to transform that into a marathon running. And you know, I always tell people, you know, if you want the best worker in your job, I am a marathon runner. You know, there's something about us that we really hard-working people.
I should mention also, we were talking about the Canadian marathon record of Sylvia Ruger's 2:28:36. It stood since 1985. Right now, Krista Duchesne is on pace to go under 2:28 at the halfway mark. So if she can keep that up, it should be for an interesting finish. Now, Wesley, marathoners, do they have to have a different kind of mentality, do you think, than a track runner, you know, 5,000, 10,000 meter runner? You have to be a bit crazy to move up to the marathon, don't you?
Oh yeah, marathon, you have to have another different mentality. You know, there's a lot of things that happen in a marathon. You're not just a runner. You are, you know, there's your spiritual, you know, part of it. There's your physical part of it. There's your mental part of it. Like when I train, coach always tells me you have to train physically, mentally, and spiritually. You know, you're running a marathon, something that you don't do in your training. You know, you're running a pace that you don't normally do. You're going beyond your normal human being capability. And that's why I always say you're going into the next level. That is the spiritual level of your life, whereby you don't know what's going to happen. You're running there with this pace that you have never ran before. So it's really amazing. Something about running a marathon that is very amazing.
We're just taking a look at the half marathon finish right now. As you see, the top women half marathoners come through the finish line.
Here's the women winner.
I was just reading here that Krista Duchesne in her last 5 marathons has taken off 9 minutes, 5 minutes, and 7 minutes, and 7 minutes off each consecutive marathon. So she has been taking an axe to her personal best times in the last 5 races. And this time around, who knows? She's run a 2:31 high, 2:32. She could cut off another 4 minutes. That's almost sounds conservative by comparison to a 9-minute PB. So we could see something special today.
Wesley, when you hear about such big breakthroughs, Lanny Marchand, 14-minute personal best, Krista Duchesne, a 7-minute personal best at Rotterdam, do you think that they are able to, do you think that they can keep this momentum going, you know, race after race?
I think they can. I think one thing about these 2 girls is they wanted to be in Olympics really bad and they didn't make it. So that's an added advantage to them. You know, I was talking to them, I was like, you take that as an encouragement for the next level, you know, and I think that's what they're doing. They're just taking it to the next level.
Well, we're going to take a break right now as we continue with our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
Hungry for fun? Hungry for good times? Hungry for great taste? Satisfy your hunger with the new Tuscan Chicken Melt Sandwich, available for a limited time. Tender seasoned chicken, a succulent balsamic vinaigrette, and 8 grams of fat. Try the new apple slices, too. Subway, think fresh, eat fresh. Take part in Sports Day on September 29th, powered by Subway Restaurants.
So we're back with our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon as we see some of the top half marathoners come across the line. We will be getting back to the men's marathon race in just a matter of moments as we take a look at the finish line here at Bay and Queen in downtown Toronto, right near Nathan Phillips Square in City Hall. We've got Mihira Lakshman and Michael Doyle from Canadian Running bringing you the coverage, along with special guest Wesley Korir, Boston Marathon champion and 2:06 marathoner Wesley. So what have you thought so far of what we've seen so far today, Wesley?
I think it's amazing. It's amazing to see these guys running this fast. You know, they are really moving. 2:07, 2:06 pace. That is going to happen today, I think so. If those guys keep the pace they're going, and I'm just amazed the way the weather changed. You know, I came here early in the morning, it was pouring and now there's no rain again. So it's really working to the advantage of the runners. I just hope the humidity doesn't pick up and hurt them towards the end, but I think we're going to see some amazing times today.
Now, if you're just joining us, the lead men appear to be on 2:07 low pace, and the women appear to be on about 2:21, 2:22-ish pace. That's Agnes Kiprop that is leading the women right now, quite a ways out front. But one story we're keeping a close watch on is Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario. She split the half in 73.42 and is on pace to go under 2:28. And now we're taking a look at her group right now. That is one of the pacers. Michael, that's Réjean Chasson, isn't it? Pacing right there.
That is Réjean. He is a 2:19 marathoner, Canadian marathon champion this spring in Ottawa, and he's going to run the full 42. He's tucked in there with Mary Davies of New Zealand, who also resides in Ottawa with her husband, but she maintains New Zealand citizenship, and she's had some career up and downs in the last few years, but she has said that she is in tip-top shape right now, and it appears so because they're running in a sub 2:30 pace.
And Krista Duchesne tucked right in there, right behind pacer Réjean Chasson and Mary Davies. That is a solid effort so far for Duchesne. She looks good. It'll be interesting to catch a glimpse of her. She's right behind the pacer, so our cameras can't exactly see her, but it's really encouraging to see her out there. They all look very comfortable at this stage, and it is quite a good pace for them. They're on sub 2:28 pace as they go past right around 22-23K at this point.
I love seeing Mary Davies actually taking some turn, cutting the wind there for her runners. Wesley, do you ever find yourself ahead of the pacers at this stage in the race, actually doing some of the pacing?
I try not to. You know, it's very tempting to do that, especially when you're feeling good and you wanna go and go. You have to be patient. But I think what Christine Duchesne is doing is perfect. You know, she has a taller pacer than her. So if you have a headwind, so that guy is going to be able to hold the wind for you. I think the guy is wider than her and he's taller than her. So it's a perfect position for her. If she can stay behind him and just let him break the headwind, I think that would be really perfect.
And she's going to have Chasson with her as a pacer for the full 42. What kind of advantage does that give her in the situation versus, say the lead female who may lose her pacers at around 30 kilometers and have to do the rest of it alone?
Well, it gives her a lot of advantage because she can never run alone. You know, she'll have somebody run with all the way to the finish line. And especially if that guy is going at a pace, I think that would be perfect for her. Especially, you know, if the wind picks up, she will be really able to, you know, move around and make sure that the guy is blocking the wind for her. I think that's a perfect setup for her.
You know, it's interesting because when Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchand ran so well in Rotterdam, they were almost off on their own. So now that Krista has a group to run with, it's very encouraging. As we take a look at our lead men now, and we're getting our first glimpse of them, and it looks like we've got a 28K split for the leaders, for the women. Sorry, for the men, 124.59. 124.59 for the lead men at 28K.
Still looks like there's a nice grouping of lead men. The two pacers, of course, are out front, breaking the wind. This is probably the most challenging stretch on the course. It's a bit of a dull area. It's down in the Portlands area of the city. The roads are nice for running on, but it is quite quiet. You're not going to get very much in terms of a crowd. Wesley, in this situation, every race, Chicago, for example, has a very large desolate area and a tough part of the course. How much does that affect you when there's no crowd and you're all alone, especially in the last, say, 10 or 15 kilometers of a race?
It is really hard. We use the energy as runners. We use the energy of the crowd to pump us up and push you on. So when you go to a place whereby there's no cheering, it's really hard because you don't have that energy. You're not sucking the energy from the crowd. But you see those guys are really, punched up. It's a really good group right there. That's amazing. They're moving at, 207 pace, high 206, I think. And you see everybody looks very, very relaxed.
And you can see the main contenders, Kiprotich, Yegon, we've got Kimutai all in there. And right now we're just going to take a look at some pre-race comments from Gilbert Yegon.
Ya kwamba kuwa mimi ni wa kwanza kukuja huku Canada na nimejitayarisha kukuja kukimbia hii mbio na kutimiza kukimbia vizuri. Wakati wa siku ya kwenda kukimbia nitajaribu vilivyo kukimbia kuliko awali mbio yenye nilikuwa nimekimbia huko Amsterdam. So najaribu kupunguza time. Inategemea mvua isiponyesha kubwa. Sijajua hawa, lakini kitu mzuri tu ni kukimbia pamoja mpaka ifike kiwango mwenye ako na nguvu aende, ama tuende pamoja tumalize tukiwa grupu moja.
And we're back live with the coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. We're taking a look at the lead men. We've got the main contenders all still at the front. Gilbert Yegon, John Kiprotich, Kenneth Kimute. They're right around passing through 30K here. And they all look really good right now, don't they?
They look amazingly good. I think Yegon looks very, very relaxed. Kiprotich looks really good. He looks really good. He looks like, he's looking down at the pacers. And then there's that Ethiopian guy at the back. Sege looks really good, and he stays in the back, and he's just letting them pull. And you can see Kiprotich telling Yegon, come here, move close by.
So Wesley, we see 3 Kenyans and an Ethiopian here. Tell us about the rivalry that goes on between the Kenyan and the Ethiopian runners.
It is high intensity out there. Especially when you have a group of Kenyans and a group of Ethiopians. It's very, very, you can never know how high the intensity is between the rivalry between the two countries. Is very, very high. They talk about against each other. They strategize against each other, and it's very interesting to be part of that. Especially with me and my, I'm in the middle. I am not a full-time Kenyan, and I'm not an Ethiopian, so I always find myself in the middle of the conversations. I have friends who are Ethiopians. I always go to the Ethiopians and talk to them, and then I have that's really they're throwing away bottles and stuff. So that's really crazy out there.
Yeah, look, it's a little bit of chaos there at the water station. It's surprising to see so much chaos at the water stations because these are such experienced runners, but. Now we're seeing them pass the water back and forth, with sharing it with their pacers. Again, Yegon right up there, and Kiprotich and Kimutai. There's Kiprotich. Looks like he's making a slight move, but I'm not sure if that's just to pick up the pace after they slow down a bit at the water station.
I think they slowed down and the pacers left. I can't see the pacers, so he's going after the pacers. But yeah, that was really crazy. I think Yegon didn't pick a his water bottle, but I'm glad he was able to share with somebody, because that was really would have been a bad move for him not to pick the water bottle.
I'm not sure if Sege got any water in that stop there, and unfortunately, being the only Ethiopian in the pack, sort of the odd man out. There was a little bit of national team play going on where they were passing the water ball around the Kenyans.
A little bit of gamesmanship there as they come past the 30K mark now down towards the beaches area of Toronto. The pacers have dropped out. These runners are all on their own for the final 12K. It looks like the top 3 finishers will come from this group of 4. And will they break that course record of Kenneth Mungara's 207.58? Set last year. Kenneth Mungara, who's owned this race for the past 4 years, obviously won't be winning it this year. But another runner seems to have dropped out. It's tough to say who that is, but we'll see. Or it might have been a pacer.
I think 2 pacers, just 2 people dropped out. So I don't know if it's the pacer and the runner, or both of them are pacers. But yeah, they looked really good. We have 2 Ethiopians there and 2 Kenyans. So they're really moving. the Ethiopian seems to be just sitting behind the Kenyans. I don't know if that is a strategy or something.
Now we've got a split for the lead men at 30K, 131.05. 131.05 for the lead men. As you can see here, that's a 6:06 last 2K. And we've got Kiprotich, Kimutai, right up the front there.
And Warga, who is running in the t-shirts today. Wesley, for some of these African runners, temperature can be a huge issue, even where, you know, Canadians at this stage, we think that this is sort of, it's a bit chilly, but once you get the heart pumping, it doesn't seem too cold. But for a Kenyan or Ethiopian runner who has just come over here in the last 4 or 5 days, it's quite cold right now, right?
It is cold. You know, we as Africans, you know, Kenyans and Ethiopians, anything under 20 degrees Celsius is very cold for us. So it's really, you know, it's not surprising to see them wearing a t-shirt. But you can see they slowed down in that K. They're now running 2:08 pace. So they moved from 2:07 high 2:06 to now running a 2:08, and now they're just by themselves. Both pacers just drop out. So now I don't know. Hopefully they will be able to pick up again to 2:07. But right now they're really slowing down.
But at this point, Wesley, they're probably less concerned about time and more concerned about tactics, going for the win.
Yeah, I think now the fact that the group is really punched up, I think mostly they're now going for the win and not the time anymore. But we'll just wait and see if somebody will break. I think it will come when somebody breaks. That's when now they can be able to focus on breaking the other people. But I think they really slow down very dramatic.
Now we're taking a look at Agnes Kiprop, still leading the women's race very comfortably. She appears to be looking very relaxed and has to be the favorite to win at this point. I'm not going out on a limb for saying that. Agnes Kiprop, she has probably the best credentials of the women in this group, and with a 2:25 personal best, it should be no surprise that she's in the lead.
This race is reminding me of when she ran Turin and won it a couple of years ago, and she started the first half very fast. It was a very similar day to today, a little bit windy, kind of cool for Italy, and rainy. And apparently the weather got to quite a few of the runners, but she started off, she ran a low 2:20s pace for much of that race and slowed down only marginally. She finished with a 2:26, but she held a 2:26 pace in the last 10K and easily won. Could be a very similar situation today, although it doesn't seem like she's slowing yet.
Yeah, she's looking really good. I think she's just tucked behind the pacers, and you know, she's relaxed. There's nobody, behind her. I think if she looks back, she can see anybody. So that's give her some confidence and some room to play around. But if she's going for time, I think she's looking good, and she looks really focused. She looks very focused as a runner.
At this stage in the race, Wesley, what sort of motivators do you use to keep focused, to keep yourself pushing that hard pace, especially if you're going for, say, as you did in Chicago this year, a 2:06, or when it's a more difficult race like in Boston, where it's all guts and it's not about time, but it's about winning? How do you keep yourself motivated, especially if you don't have somebody right next to you?
I think at that moment you just have to really try to maintain the pace. I think if you are in that position whereby you're just by yourself, just stay focused, stay at that moment and maintain the pace, because you don't know, somebody else might be coming for you behind there. You are now being hunted. You're not hunting. So there are people hunting from you from behind. So you have to really stay focused to make sure that you don't lose focus and slow down too much. But she looks like she's really focused, and you have to have motivation. Maybe right now she's thinking about her family. She's thinking about how far she has come as a person. To me, whenever I run, there's a lot of things I think about. I think about my faith. I think about God, who really pushes me through all this pain. And I think about my family. I think about the Kenyans that I'm helping through my foundation. I think about how much I will make a difference with what I'm doing. So with her, I think there's other things that might be, helping her stay focused and stay at the moment, and try to do the best she can. But she looks really good, and those pacers are doing a really, really tremendous job today.
Now, Wesley, as we take a look at Agnes Kiprop here, have you ever had a chance to run with her or train with her at all? How well do you know her?
I've met her a couple of times. I really don't know her well, but I've met her a couple of times as just a friend. So I think she's a very, very nice lady. You know, she loves my daughter. Every time we meet, she goes and holds my daughter and stuff. So she's an amazing lady to be here and to be able to do what she's doing right now.
And right now, she's running very comfortably, just shaking out a few of the kinks, and the pacers are going to take her all the way. How much of an advantage is it for these women to be able to run behind male pacers? Because the men, their pacers don't go past 30K, but the women are having these pacers go almost pretty much all the way.
I don't know what is going on. I don't know if those guys are hurting. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they went too fast and the weather is catching up with them or something. But yeah, it's gonna be, you know, somebody has to make a really, really big move to be able to come back. And you can see that thing is being stretched. Yegon seems to be really struggling at the back of the field. And you can see those Ethiopians, the two Ethiopians are just tucked in behind Kiprotich, and Yegon is behind. So they're now reduced to 4 people. So it's really getting really competitive now.
Once the wheels start to come off in the marathon, it is very difficult to put it back together. Perhaps they're paying the price for those 257s that they put in the early 20K of this. The early pace in the first 20K, we were concerned that they were maybe going out too fast and ramping it up too fast before even halfway. At points they were running 206, 205 pace. So I think that may be catching up with their legs at this point as we see Kiprotich and Warga checking their shoulders there.
And then Kiprotich is trying not to be the pacemaker here. You can see that he's slowing down, trying to be able to have the other guys come and take the walk, and nobody wants to take the lead now. You can see that the Ethiopians just want to stay behind Kiprotich. Kiprotich doesn't want to lead this thing. He's telling them, come, he's telling them, come and help me do this work. So that's really the hard part now. It's really hard to get back to the pace that they were running earlier, because now what they're doing is it's playing now. It's a tricky game now. Do you want to take the lead and push, or do you want to wait because they might sit on you and then out-kick you at the end?
If you're in the situation that Kiprotich is in right now, Wesley, do you try to make a move to try to shake them, or do you just settle in and hope that somebody else is going to take the lead for a little bit and do a bit of the work?
I think if I was put in that position where Kiprotich is, just run your race. Go out there and just run. If they beat you, you will say, hey, I gave it all I can. But it's really tricky right now. It's a mental battle that he's going through right now to either stay at the lead and continue leading, or let the other person take over the lead. And you can see nobody really wants to take the lead, and he has to really make up his mind and see, do I go or do I just stay? But it seems as if he's decided to just run his own pace and run his own race.
It seems as though the pace may have slowed even further. Yegon has been able to get back into this group, which is a good thing for him, because he was very much in danger of dropping off the back. So we have 4 in this group, in this lead group, coming back through the beaches. This is the most challenging part of the race. They're deep into the 30s now. There's a bit of a wind hitting their face from the southwest, about 15 kilometers an hour. And this is last year where Mungara was running and Kulased was up there with the lead Africans, with Mungara and the Ethiopian. And this is where they lost Reed, was along this stretch here where it gets very tough.
This can be a very lonely stretch. They're coming through the beaches right now, and 33K and 140.33 for the lead man. That's a 3:13 last kilometer, so it's turned into a tactical affair. The wheels are starting to come off, so it's going to be about who can slow down the least of this group.
I think this moment plays very well into the hands of someone like Yegon, who was struggling just a kilometer ago, and now he gets to settle down. He gets to find a second wind. Wesley, in a 42K race, there are a lot. You're kind of like a cat. You've got 9 lives in a race. Have you experienced moments where you thought you were finished in a race midway, and then all of a sudden you get a second wind?
Oh yeah, it happened to me in Boston this year. when I won Boston this year, this spring, it was like that. You know, at 2 miles to go, I was very much behind. I was 1 minute behind the leaders at 2 miles to go, and I was able to come back and be able to catch up with those guys. And this really work well for those people who are behind, who maintain their own pace. If you can find somebody who maintain their own pace, these guys are really dropping. They are dropping like 5 seconds every kilometer behind. And if you find somebody who's gaining 5 seconds every kilometer, he's catching up with them. So I think Yegon really looks well if he sits behind there, but they keep dropping him back and forth. The person that looks really good right now are those two Ethiopians. You know, Mega and the other guy.
Warga.
Yeah, Warga. Yeah, Warga and
Warga and Sige. Yeah.
Warga and Sige are really looking good. They're working as a group. There are two of them right there. They are settled in between the two Kenyans, and they look really good. And I think, you know, if those guys are the danger right now, I think if they can stay in that position, the other guy will be pacing them, and they will do a damage at the end. So really, I think the two guys right now are not concerned about the pace. They know that they are out of the course record of 2:07, unless they have to really run fast the last 7K. But they are really concerned about winning right now than even breaking the course record.
Now we're just taking a look again at some of the finishers of the half marathon as they come across the finish line here at Bay and Queen in downtown Toronto at Nathan Phillips Square. A lot of relief on their faces, joy, a lot of people smiling as they come across the line. Many people here are running for charities. There's 167 charities involved, raising $3.7 million for good causes. Really inspirational for a lot of these runners to have a cause to run for. Now, Wesley, you were mentioning your foundation. You have a cause that you're very passionate about. Can you tell us a little bit about who you help with that?
Yeah, my foundation, the Kenyan Kids Foundation, I started 2 years ago. We are registered in the U.S. as a 501(c)(3) tax deductible in the U.S. Not in Canada yet, but we are working on that. But with our foundation, what we do is with the money I win from these races and some money that we get from, you know, like friends and people that join us in the team to raise money. We do like, there are three fields. We do education. You know, we believe that education is liberation. We use the money to educate people. I feel like that's one thing that Kenya we need to do is stress on the importance of education. And the second thing that we do is healthcare. You know, healthcare is a very important thing. In healthcare in Kenya, we don't have a good healthcare. People are struggling, you know, there's no good healthcare. We partnered with the Whole Step Foundation, my friend Ryan Ho, and we were able to raise money, and Beulah Hospital is now completely done, and is now seeing patients in the village where I come from. So that's really good. And another thing we're doing is empowerment. We are empowering the poor to be able to raise their own crops and stuff. So those are the three things that we are focusing on a lot with the foundation.
So now it looks like we got the lead men through 35K. I just caught a glimpse of the clock around 1:45:30-ish. It's 1:45:25 for, oh sorry, we have Krista Duchesne at 1:45:25 at 30K, and the men, it looks like they were at 35K at around 1:45 as well. So just to go back to Krista Duchesne, 1:45 at 30K. Well, let's see if we can figure out what kind of pace she is at. We'll calculate that, but we're just taking a look now at Agnes Kiprop leading the women's race here.
So that, you know, you can see that the pace of the other pace of the women has dropped. So I hope she stays with them. You know, the men were running at 1:45 at 5K. So they, you know, they have picked up a little bit. They are 2:07 pace. They're back to 2:07 pace, a little bit over 2:07 pace. So that's not really bad for the guys because they're now picking up the pace a little bit to 2:07 pace.
So, the split is 1:46:30 for the men at 35K. Krista Duchesne, 1:45:25 at 30K. Lanny Marchant is about 30 seconds back at the 30K marker. So Krista Duchesne, at last check, she was around 2:28 pace, but we'll calculate.
She has slipped a little bit. We're looking at maybe around a 2:30, 2:31 pace at this point. It depends on how much the pace has fallen off. She'll be awfully close to trying to get that sub 2:30 pace. Wesley, the sub 2:30 pace in Canada for an elite female runner, it's one of these big barriers. Besides the 2:28 Canadian record, sub 2:30 is something that hasn't happened in a really long time in this country. Where do you see the future of women's running in Canada going now? With your wife, of course, she's doing quite well, and with Krista and Lanny.
I think we have a bright future. We just need a little bit of motivation for that side. I think we have a good motivation on the men's side with these guys being in Olympics and running in Olympics. I think we need to find a way of motivating these women to be able to take up marathon running better. We need to show them that it makes money. You need to show them that they can make a living through marathon running. In this level of competition and this level of running, they need financial help, they need mental help, and they need spiritual help to be able to attain that. But to see a mom like Duchenne that is, she sponsors herself to be able to do that. If she can go today at under 2:30, that would be an amazing accomplishment for her. But right now, men, we are 2:08 pace. The men, that's 35K. They were 2:08 pace at 35K.
Wesley, we'll let you catch your breath so you can maybe grab a cookie or something to eat. You're really helping us along here. Thank you so much for joining us as we take a look at John Kiprotich, and we've got an Ethiopian Warga up there and Sege. The two Ethiopians are doing very well, Batona Warga and Batoro Sege. Both of them come into this race with 2:09 personal bests. While they seem to have dropped Gilbert Yegon, and John Kiprotich, who has a 2:07 personal best, is struggling to hang on there. Perhaps the Ethiopians played this one a little smarter because they were a little more relaxed in the first half. They were tucking themselves behind, and now this is looking to be a 2:09 race.
These two Ethiopian guys have gotten very fortunate today because they were probably punching above their weight in the first half of this race, but the race has kind of come back to them a little bit. And as Wesley just pointed out to me, Kiprotich looked like he was grimacing, struggling a little bit, and now, sure enough, he's trying not to be the pace bunny for these two guys and trying to stay away from them a little bit, whereas the two of them now get to work together at least for a few kilometers before the big kick at the end. The one saving grace for Kiprotich, though, is he is by far the best 10K runner in this group, so he does have the leg speed. Although there's something developing here.
I think Kiprotich is being dropped. I think the Ethiopians are now going. I saw Kiprotich looking back a little bit there, and now the Ethiopians are hammering. You can see them talking. Mega and his countrymen are now talking. So now it's becoming tactical. This is now an Ethiopian race. I think the Kenyans are done now.
So that's Batona Warga and Batoro Sege of Ethiopia. They are working together to drop John Kiprotich. Kiprotich isn't letting go, though. As you can see, they just went by the McDonald's at Eastern and Broadview. No stopping for them, but the Ethiopians clearly have the advantage here, don't they, Wesley? Because they're committed to work as a team here.
They have a big advantage because now they can communicate. You can see them talking and stuff. Kiprotich is a hold man out, but you can see he came back again. But I don't know how long he's going to hold, but the Ethiopians, especially Warga, looks really, really good. I think Warga looks really good, but Kiprotich is fighting back. And if he can fight back and come back, he is showing something right there.
Now we're into the closing stages of this race. Probably about 15 minutes left to go until we see them approach the finish line. And the strain on their faces is becoming quite visible as we now take a look at the half marathoners coming to the finish here. As we mentioned, over 20,000 runners running in the half marathon, marathon, and 5K. Now taking a look at the lead women, Agnes Kiprop of Kenya, right behind the pacer, tucked in there. She's been quite comfortably in the lead since about 16K when she made a surge at a water station. It proved to be a good move for her. We were worried that since she didn't take any fuel, it could come back to haunt her, but she seems to have a pretty good cushion. Just to give you an update on the Canadians, Krista Duchesne at 30K was 1:45.25. Her pace had slipped slightly from the half marathon, but perhaps still within reach of that Canadian record of 2:28.36 of Sylvia Ruger, and Lanny Marchant of London, Ontario is just about 30 seconds back of Krista Duchesne. As we go back to the lead woman, Agnes Kiprop of Kenya.
Looked like she just passed the 34K mark there, and she's looking very, very smooth. She knows that she has this race in control at this point. It's her race to lose. Barring a total blow up, I think she's got this one. You don't want to call it too early because there's still 8 very brutal kilometers left to go in this race, but she has a pacer with her. She seems to have a nice stride going. She just has to make sure she doesn't forget the fuel stops, even in these late stages. Wesley, how late are you taking? Do you take the fuel in?
Oh, I always take the fuel all the way to the 40K, 2K to go. You still have to hydrate. I think that's the most important part of running is continue hydrating as much as possible. Kiprotich is back.
Kiprotich is definitely back.
I know, and he looks so good. That was really a surprise. I thought he was done, but he's back there and is now back to the lead too. So, but Walker is just sitting right there with him. And but Kiprotich is really showing something here today.
So we have a split, 1:53.27 for the men at 37K. That's 1:53.27 for the lead men at 37K. They have about 5K to go now as they come through Eastern Avenue, approaching the Distillery District. And the lead men, the group of 3, are still working together here. Kiprotich, Warga, Sege. Who is going to come down and make that final decisive move over the last 5K? It's a bit of a battle right now, and Kiprotich knows that he's got his work cut out for him as the 2 Ethiopians look to be perhaps a bit fresher. There's going to be a bit of a tactical battle here. I think it's going to come down to the timing of the surge and who can hold it. Wesley, do you think that we should watch for a surge at some point here?
I think soon. I think at a 40K, we should be waiting for something very soon. But you know, Kiprotich, really, those guys tried to drop Kiprotich. You can see they talked and they made a move, but they didn't. So that is really a good sign that Kiprotich is strong. You know, he's very confident at his pace, and he looks very relaxed. That he's glancing at his watch, and he looks really relaxed. So I think Kiprotich here is the guy to watch to come to the finish line, because they try to drop him. And sometimes when you're running a marathon, when they don't drop you once, it is really dangerous because you have the confidence that you are able to catch up with them again.
We're coming on to a potentially huge moment here where when they cross the dawn, there's a little bit of an uphill. It feels like a mountain at this stage in the race. And the strongest man will prevail over that overpass when you pass the Greek cheering section there with about 2K to go. And once you get over that hump, it's a fast finish back into the heart of the city and right past us here.
That's right. You know, Michael, this is the dying stages of this race. This is actually, if we look back to last year's race, where this is probably where Reed Coolset really made or break his Olympic standard, and he really pushed hard through this final stretch to get in under that Olympic standard. All 3 of these men here are going to have to prevent their legs from telling them to stop, and we know their legs are screaming at them in pain. The wheels are starting to come off. They have been coming off for the past 5K. It's going to be about who can minimize that damage and who can manage that lactic acid buildup the best over the final stretch.
And everybody right now is hurting, no matter who you are. Right now, all those 3 guys, I tell you, they're hurting a lot. But it's who can stay stronger. And you can see the Ethiopians are really smart. They are going for their drinks. They're going for water and stuff. So that's really smart on their side.
Kiprotich didn't take water there.
He didn't take that water, but he looks strong.
It could mean that he's dialed in and he's in his zone right now. Yeah. I mean, he knows that he's getting pushed out to the front, and he is going to be, feasted on by these 2 Ethiopians in the last couple of kilometers. So he must be thinking to himself, I better suck it up and run the finish of my life in the next couple of K here.
Yeah. He keeps looking behind a lot. I don't know why, but we should just stay there and stay at the moment with those guys.
They're coming through the Distillery District right now, and this is the the final neighborhood that they're going to be going through. The runners will be going through the distillery, then into St. Lawrence Market before they make their way back into downtown. And some of the main sponsors to mention here, the Toronto Foundation for Student Success. This is the 12th neighborhood that these runners will have run through over the course of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. And their neighborhood champions include Suzanne Kavanagh, who is of the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Association. Now we do have a split to tell you, 38K for the men in 1:56.49. That's a 3:14 last kilometer. The pace has really dropped. It's coming down to, going to come down to tactics at this point. Wesley?
Yeah, I think right now it's all tactics. Those guys is now survival of the fittest, who can survive the best. I don't think in their mind anymore. I don't think they're thinking about the course record, or they don't think about the time anymore. I think they just think about stay focused, stay at the moment, and just be strong towards the end of the race.
They may not break 2:10.
They may not, but this is also what makes this sport exciting, because now this is just mano a mano. It's the three of them. It's who's the best man, who's the strongest runner on the day, who's got the most guts. It's got nothing to do with times or bonuses or whatever. It probably doesn't even at this point have anything to do with the paycheck at the end. It has to do with winning.
I know right now I think they're going to break 2:10. I think they'll run about 2:09 if they can keep that pace, if they can maintain that pace a little bit, as long as they don't drop too much. But right now it's just about winning. It's about who is going to win. I don't think in their mind they think about anything. They think about how can I survive, how can I keep these guys on, on check until the finish line. It's going to come to a kick at the end.
Now we're back with the lead men of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, taking a look at the three leaders. Kiprotich is really hunched over. This is the Don, crossing the Don. This is that hill you were talking about, Michael. This can feel like a mountain at this stage of the race.
This portion of the course can crush even the most experienced marathoner. These guys are going to be fighting to the finish for this one here.
We are through 39K in 2 hours and 15 minutes. 2 hours flat and 2 hours and 15 seconds. 2 hours and 15 seconds through 39K for these leaders, and they are struggling at this point, crawling up the Don there. It's going to be who makes the move and who can go with them. We've got Kiprotich of Kenya, then the two Ethiopians, Warga and Sege, trying to work together to end the Kenyan dominance of this race, because Kenyan Kenneth Magara has won this race for 4 straight years. So it looks right now that Sege looks the freshest of these three as he's tucked in behind there. Not much time left to make a move.
Yeah, they're now at 2:10 pace. They're now at 2:10 pace, so it's gonna be really. You see, Kiprotich seems to trying to pull away a little bit, but those guys are just sitting on his hill. It's gonna be really hard to drop those guys. They're staying there. They're like a tick. They don't want to let go.
Now this hill is going for a long time too. It's not that steep, but it does take a while to get over.
It will wear on the quads, and we're going to find out at the bottom of this hill whose legs have got just something left in them and who does not. Because when you go down the hills, I find going down the hills, Wesley, are the toughest thing on your legs. It's way worse than going up the hills.
Oh, the downhill is always the worst, because your quads are hurting so much. And, and that hill doesn't look like it's a hill. It's like it's nothing really, but at this time of the race, anything, an incline a little bit, seems like a forever ending hill, and at this moment, it can take a lot out of you, but you can see Kiprotich bending forward. That's a tactic we normally use when you're climbing a hill. You bend forward to get that gravity as low as possible and get the momentum forward. So you can see him bending a little bit forward more than the other guys are doing.
So Kiprotich, I just noticed, checked his watch there. He's probably going to be discouraged by what he sees on that. It doesn't matter anymore. Now this is about winning this race. Wesley, how discouraging can it be to see your splits drop like that?
To me, I never even run with a watch. I always just run and just get yourself to the finish line. I think what now they should be focused right now is getting themselves to the finish line, because no matter what they do, they're not gonna reduce that time anymore to where their goal was at the beginning of today. So all they have to do is just focus and stay focused. Stay at the moment and just get yourself to the finish line quicker than anybody else.
We're going to take a break and come back for the finish of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
Float in the Adrenaline GTS 12.
And we're back with the lead men. We have a split at 40K through 2:03.46 for these three leaders. That's a 3:26 last kilometer. This is actually turned into a jog, and it's going to be a finishing sprint that we're just waiting for as they come up to the final mile of this race, Wesley.
I doubt they find that this is a jog at this stage. It looks like all three men are suffering for this win pretty hard, and it's anybody's ball game. Wesley, in your situation, a couple of K left, three guys together, you have no idea what the other guys are capable of. Do you go for it now, or do you wait for the last couple of 100 meters and try to throw a kick at the end?
I think if I was in that position, if I'm feeling a little bit stronger, I'll push. I think anybody that just tries to push a little bit right now, just even runs like a 3:10. What is going on?
Oh.
Why did he do that?
Oh, that's a huge
That
mistake.
is a huge mistake by Kiprotich. I don't know why he went back there for the water station, but it has opened up the race now as we see Warga take the lead with Sege behind him.
That is the worst. That's the worst thing you can ever do as a runner. You don't do that.
The opposite direction is
yeah,
not the right move.
Honestly, I tell you, I've done that. I did that in LA Marathon a couple of years ago, and it costed me the whole race. And that is a bad idea. It's over. You see, Warga is now pushing really hard. It's over.
Wesley, why do you think Kiprotich would have done that? You're inside 1 mile to go. If you miss your water, that's okay.
Because he didn't miss the water before. He didn't take any water from, every time he was missing. And now he realized that he's struggling, he's hurting, and his mind switches off. He goes to the water. That is a bad idea. I don't think he should have done that. He should have just kept going and just kept going. Look for those water at the end on the street. Have somebody holding water, but he decided to go for it, and that just breaks it out there.
It just goes to show that be it if you're a 4-hour marathoner doing it recreationally, or if you're a competitive 206 elite, if you do not fuel in the early stages or in the mid stages of the race, you make silly mistakes at the end, just as Kiprotich did there.
And that's why I always tell people, stay at the moment, stay in the moment. I think when you are running this fast, your mind is getting so tired, you get confused, you do things that you don't know what you're doing. And that's one thing that helped me a lot in Boston Marathon. I won Boston Marathon not because of my ability to run fast, but because of my ability to be smart and stay at the moment. Kiprotich didn't stay at the moment right there, and that is going to cost him the race.
And Wesley, that happened just in the final mile. So much dramatics in the final mile at the final water station. Batuna Warga taking advantage and perhaps running to victory.
Yeah, and I think Kiprotich is going to look at that and he's going to really reclaim, because he was looking really good and he was really controlling the pace, and he shouldn't have done that.
And we're approaching the finish here with Batuna Warga of Ethiopia taking advantage of that mistake, followed by his countryman Batura Sege, also of Ethiopia. This will end the Kenyan dominance of this race, as for the past 4 years Kenneth Mungara has won it. But what a move by Batuna Warga, timing it perfectly, taking advantage of Kiprotich's mistake.
Unless Kiprotich comes back in the last 2K remaining, unless he comes back, I don't know, because you can see they're coming now to the finish. You can see that's the finish line, about 200 meters to go. Unless he really comes back, I don't know. He'll have to really sprint after that mistake.
He would have easily 5-6 seconds that he'd have to cover in the last mile, and also having to get that leg speed back up again, which is just so difficult, especially after you've come to basically a complete stop in that horrible mistake that he made with less than 2K to go.
After, all three of those men had separated themselves from the pack, ran very gutsy races under, difficult conditions today. Perhaps they went out a little bit too fast, but they held it together better than anybody else. Sure, their pace slowed down, but they managed to keep the wheels from falling off too badly. And then it comes down to the final mile at the water station. Right now we're approaching 2:09, and we're still waiting for our first place finisher to come through. It looks like it'll probably be Betuna Warga of Ethiopia as we wait for them to make that final turn.
And there he is, about 300 meters to go at about close to 2:10 right now, and he's moving. That mistake by Kiprotich definitely costed him the race, and Warga took advantage of that and realized that, I can do this. He's a guy that has ran with a t-shirt all through the race and is now coming to the finish line of Toronto Marathon.
What a move by Betuna Warga to take advantage of that. It also seemed to take Sege a little bit off guard. Sege seemed a bit surprised that Kiprotich was going back for the water. But now we see the final straight, 200 meters to go for Betuna Warga of Ethiopia. He's going to be crowned the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon Champion. Let's bring him home now.
It's over 2 minutes 10 seconds already for the marathon. I think they're going to run about 2:30 or something like that. So he slowed up really dramatically.
So we see the finishing clock here. Betuna Warga of Ethiopia is your 2012 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon Champion, about 2:10:36. Now for second here.
It looks like
Kiprotich.
No, Kimutai.
Oh, Kimutai.
Where did he come from?
He has come out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. He was nowhere to be seen in the final 2K, then all of a sudden he appears and it looks like he's going to claim second place.
Wow, he must have just fallen apart there in the last K, whereas Warga smelled blood and just went for the kill shot and totally took off on everybody. He literally buried the two men that he was running with in the last half of this race.
And that's how we show. That's the beauty of marathon running. You never say die until the finish line. Kimutai right there proved that you can do it. He was nowhere the last 2K, and look, he has passed. He has passed Kiprotich. He has passed the other Ethiopian to take second place. Unbelievable turn of events.
A lot of drama in the last 2 kilometers.
What a wonderful race to watch. Maybe the times weren't as fast as we would have hoped, but there certainly was a lot to watch for in the final 10K of this event. And, Wesley, we saw almost a little bit of everything here.
I know, it's been an interesting thing to watch. Painful to watch for somebody like Kiprotich to do a mistake like that. That was just the worst thing you can ever do at that stage of a race.
You'll never miss a water station again, I can guarantee that.
So we're awaiting word on the top Canadians in the men's race. We were talking a little bit about Rob Watson with the 2:13 personal best. It doesn't appear that he's going to finish anywhere near that. And we've got Matt Loisel of Windsor, Ontario, who trains in Toronto, who has a 2:16 personal best. We haven't heard too much about them, but as we take a look at Suraj Jena of Ethiopia coming through the final turn, we also are waiting for further word on the top Canadian women, Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchand, who appeared to be having a pretty solid race even at the 35K mark.
It'll be interesting to see if Lanny can respond and come back and close that 30-second gap that she had between her and Duchesne. But she's a tough competitor, so she might be able to close that back up. We'll find out in a matter of minutes here.
We now take a look at Suraj Jena. of Ethiopia, crossing the line in about 2:13.18. And Wesley, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Agnes Kiprop as well, because she'd been running very comfortably. But we did know that she didn't take water at a few stations. It could come back to haunt her, but if she can stay relaxed, that's probably the key for her in the final stretch.
Yeah, at least she had a gap. She had opened a huge gap, but anything can happen. You saw what happened here today with the man. You saw Kim Tai coming from nowhere the last 2K to finish second. So anything can happen. Somebody, look, there's Yegon coming right now, really struggling. That shows you how hard it is. Marathon is a very, very hard race. And, you know, it depends on that day. You know, so we are waiting to see what she did as the race developed towards the end of the race.
Now we should mention a few words about Gilbert Yegon, the pre-race favorite with a 2:06 personal best. He was right there in the lead at halfway, just didn't have it in the second half. Wesley, at what point as a marathoner, top-level marathoner, he's going to cross the line in 2:15, which is way off of his best.
Yeah.
When do you decide whether or not to finish or drop out?
You know, to me personally, I always try to finish no matter what, because if you drop once, you'll drop always. You know, you have that tendency of always wanting to drop. So I always tell people to just keep moving until you finish. Is that Watson?
This looks like it might mean Matt Loiselle. It's hard to tell though. We're going to find out in a matter of seconds here who this is. We're awaiting the two Canadian elite males that are both looking for big days today. I believe this is...
That looks like Matt Loiselle.
It is. I believe it is Matt Loiselle. Yeah?
That is Matt Loiselle of Windsor, Ontario, who trains in Toronto with the Athletics Toronto team. Brooks-sponsored runner. Matt Loiselle looks like he's going to be the top Canadian at this year's Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Not as fast as he ran last year, but perhaps the humidity did take its toll on the runners this year.
I think it's one of these things where because it's raining, because it seems like it's not all that warm on the start line, it can kind of trick you a little bit into thinking that you're getting a nice cool day, but it's sapping you of your energy. You're sweating a lot and you're not realizing it. You're not getting feedback from your body, and then it gets you in the last 10, 12K of the race.
And Matt Loiselle is definitely a runner that we should be watching for to be a contender to make that 2016 Olympic team. Matt Loiselle, you can hear the crowds cheering behind him. Very strong effort by Matt Loiselle, 2:16.24, the top Canadian at the 2012 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Great run by Matt.
It looked like it was a hard-earned run too. He looked like he was suffering a little bit in the end there, but he finished strong, and I would say that's a good effort considering what this course and this day did to the elite African men. He ran a pretty good race, and we don't know what's happened to Rob Watson at this time, but we'll find out in the next couple of seconds.
And we're just going to take a break as we continue our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
Hungry for fun? Hungry for good times? Hungry for great taste? Satisfy your hunger with the new Tuscan Chicken Melt Sandwich, available for a limited time. Tender seasoned chicken, a succulent balsamic vinaigrette, and 8 grams of fat. Try the new apple slices, too. Subway, think fresh, eat fresh. Take part in Sports Day on September 29th, powered by Subway Restaurants.
And the weather is like this.
And we're back, and we're just seeing last year Reed Coolset's pacer, Chalimo, just finished here, and a hard-earned first. It was his debut marathon. Came in around 2:18 there.
That's Hilary. That's Hilary Chenonge. That's my schoolmate. I went to school with that guy. I trained with him. He's running with a jersey that says Kenyan Kids Foundation. His first marathon, and he's running out there. So I'm happy to see him running.
He looks pretty good at the end, actually. He looks very strong.
I know, he looks really strong. Surprising. I think he's one guy. He's a very tough guy. Just getting back into running again after getting injured for a couple of years. 2002 world champion at the youth world champion in Jamaica. He won the 5K, and now he's getting into marathon running.
How difficult is it to come back like that from injury, to miss a lot of time and then try to reassemble one's career?
I think it's a lot of determination. You know, you have to, you have the confidence level. You have to get your confidence up to the next level, and that's one thing that is very challenging for these runners, especially the Kenyan runners, when you are nowhere and then all of a sudden you are getting back into running again. So it's good to see him. It's good to see him finish the marathon, and he's a guy that definitely, hopefully in future, he can get back to good running.
We're just taking a look at the course map again, and as you know, it was a new course this year, so the old course, even though that the time was faster, this is perhaps a bit slower, but still a little more scenic for the runners. As we see the final stretch of the marathon, the final turn as these runners come down to the finishing chute. We should be expecting the lead women as the kickoff to come through relatively soon.
That is Bangogo. That guy, he lives in Canada. He's soon will be getting.
Lethbridge, yeah.
Yeah, soon will be getting his Canadian citizen. That's another future Canadian marathoner we see here.
Very talented runner.
Yeah, very talented runner. And there comes Hilary Chenonge now finishing his race today.
Now this course,
I train with Hilary.
Yeah, I train with Hilary every time I go to Kenya. We went to high school together. Very nice guy. He helped me. My first running pair of shoes, this guy gave it to me. So it's good to see him here and to see him finish his first marathon ever. I know it's not the time that he wanted, but he's definitely a strong guy. I think he's a future guy. I think he's a guy that if he keeps going out there, I think he'll do well one day.
Well, he has a personal best in the half marathon of 1:02, so
yeah.
He's a very strong runner.
And he's a very good 5K runner. You know, he ran like 13 or something in a 5K, and as a youth junior champion winner, just to see him come here and finish the marathon. It's not a good day for anybody today, but it's a good thing to see him come and finish the marathon.
He's got to be very happy. Lucas has had a lot of difficulties with stress fractures over the last few years. There was a time where he was wondering whether he was going to throw in the towel and call it quits on the marathon. And he's put together a couple of really good seasons now. I mean, he's had a good 2012. 2:24 is a solid time on a day like today for him.
Lucas McEnany is a Toby Maguire lookalike. Now we take a look at the lead women. That's Agnes Kiprop crossing the 41-kilometer mark along with her pacer. She's got 1.2 kilometers to go. Her pacer encouraging her. Her pacer will likely pull off the route shortly to let Agnes cross the line alone, but she is going to be the winner.
Coming.
But there's another runner about 100 meters behind, so Agnes will have to continue to push.
Yeah, there's a runner behind, so I think it's a lady, and there's a guy.
Hard to say, yeah, no, it is. Is that
the girl from, where's she from? Australia?
Could that be Mary Davies?
Yeah. It might be a pace. Oh, that's Davies. Is that Davies?
Yeah, Davies.
So Agnes Kiprop still in the lead, but it appears to be perhaps Mary Davies of New Zealand closing the gap.
I know. I think she got her
because this is a Canadian women's
pacer. Yeah. I think Davies just caught up with Agnes Kiprop. Wow.
Kiprop is really fading in the final kilometer here. It's going to be an interesting finish for the women.
And we're looking at around maybe a 2:28, 2:29. It could be under 2:30.
Why? Did she just pass her?
No, yes she did. Yes, she did.
Wow.
So we have a new leader in the race for the very first time
and she's moving too. She is going. She's not even slowing down.
It looks like Mary Davies.
I was told that Mary Davies came into this race in very, very good shape, perhaps the best shape of her career. She's changed things up in the last couple of years. I was told recently that she went from doing really hard workouts that were maybe burning her out to a more moderate training schedule, training regimen. And obviously she's in great shape right now because she has just come out of nowhere.
And this could be a huge personal best for Davies.
And she's really hammering too. She has opened like a a really big, huge gap on
over Kiprop.
Over Kiprop.
Wesley, she has caught Kiprop by surprise, it appears.
Very. I think that's the marathon. That's why we call it a marathon. It's a very interesting sport. Anything can happen. You know, when I was running Boston Marathon, I was nowhere. Like the last, I remember the last 2K, I passed about 5 people to be able to win that race. And I tell you, Davis, if that is really Mary Davis, she has come from far to be able to hunt down Kiprop and pass her towards the end. So it's an interesting development right there.
Well, we wondered if Kiprop's decision not to take water at the early water stations would come back to hurt. It perhaps did here in the final kilometer of the marathon as Mary Davies continues to lead now, approaching the final 800 meters.
And you can see the person that was pacing Kiprop now decides to go with Davies too. So now Davies is really running with the pacer now. The pacer decides to do his job by running with the person who is leaving.
Mary Davies has to be so happy in this closing stretch here.
You can see her smiling too.
Extraordinary race.
She checks her watch and she knows she's in for a great time today. What a run by Mary Davies of New Zealand. Coming up, passing Kiprop in the final mile, and she's going to take the championship at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.
I wonder where Christine Duchesne is doing, because she was running with her for a long time. So interesting to see how Christine Duchesne handles the last part of the race. But this is really interesting. You know, thinking that Kiprop had this already, you know, in a tank, and now here comes Davies coming to win is amazing.
228. 228.58 for Mary Davies. What a run by her. And that's right, Wesley. She was running with Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario earlier on. Now we see Agnes Kiprop coming in second place. Kiprop led pretty much from 16K to 41K. That is tough.
That hurts. Just to think about that really hurts. You have run the race really perfectly, really well, and then just at the last K, you are passed, and all that money is gone away.
You have to feel for Kiprop. She really put out a solid effort today. Unfortunate to finish in second after leading from 16K on, but Mary Davies timed it just perfectly as we take a look at our third and fourth place finishers.
That was the Ethiopian that was with them earlier, and then she got dropped. And then she came back, and now see, she's really hammering towards the finish. This is very interesting. You can see the people that ran conservative towards the beginning of the race, the people that were not with the lead towards the end of the beginning of the race, are the ones that are doing really well towards the finish of the race. Because of the humidity, and that's why I always tell people, hydrate as much as possible. Run smart. In a day like this whereby it's very humid, you have to really be smart when you're running.
Radia Adilo of Ethiopia coming through, making the final turn towards the finish. She will be in third place at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon today.
This is not far off her PB as well. She has only run a 2:29 in the past, so she has stitched together a pretty smart race here. She was taking a big risk in the first half, running with the lead group, tucked in behind them. We thought that she was sort of left for dead there at the end and dropped off the back, but she has pulled things back together again. Overtaken Kuma, obviously, quite a while ago, and put together an excellent second half.
Now we're waiting for our top Canadians, Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchant. The Canadian record is still safe. Sylvia Ruger's record of 2:28.36 will stand for another day, but certainly Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchant are the future of Canadian women's marathoning, and they will take a run at it in another time. This is Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario, ready to make the final turn for the finish at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon as the top Canadian woman in this event. A very solid run by Krista Duchesne.
It's the first run in 5 or 6 marathons that she's not run a huge PB, but she cannot be unhappy with this. She has to be totally happy coming in first female Canadian, not far off of the leaders. This is a big victory for her. This is a good springboard for her for the spring.
And she's not off her BP that much. You know, she ran 2:31.
Only 10 seconds off of her personal best.
I know that is amazing, and she's in top 5 in Toronto Marathon, a big marathon like this. You finish top 5. You know what has happened today is nothing about time. It's about fighting and fighting for the position, and she has done that. She has definitely done that. She realized that I cannot get that time, but she kept fighting and kept fighting for the finish.
And now we're taking a look at Arusalam Kuma of Ethiopia, who was among the early leaders and among the pre-race favorites, but again, perhaps succumbed to the humidity today. She's making the final turn. But back to Duchesne, very impressive run by Krista Duchesne. She's a mother of 3, as we mentioned. She's got a lot of local fans here in the Toronto area. I know a lot of people really loved the feature in Canadian Running Magazine in September, and she is a fan favorite and very popular here. Great run by Krista Duchesne. As we see Arusalam Kuma come through the line in 2:33.
It is a hard race. It's a hard day today for everybody. You know, the times are off the chart. You know, you take about 6 minutes off, you know, what these guys are running today to really get to their best time. So when you see about what she ran 2:32, that really, you know, you put about close to 4 minutes of that as 2:28.
Michael, here comes the flash.
He certainly is fast. 2:33, it's going to be over 2:34 here. If I'm not mistaken, the world record for running a marathon in a costume is a little bit faster than the Flash has just run there.
Not in just a costume, but
as a superhero. That's right.
He missed the record.
He did, yes.
But
yeah.
2:34, still pretty speedy.
Not bad.
Very good for the Flash. I think the Flash will be happy with that effort.
I'm interested to know where Lenny Marchand is.
Yeah, we will definitely have to get an update on Lanny Marchand to see where she is. Right now, we're going to take another break as we continue our coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Along with Michael Doyle, and we have special guest Wesley Korir to help us along with the coverage today as we take a look at some of the finishers coming across the marathon right now. Some of the men and the women we've seen, our top Canadians have already crossed. Matt Loisel was a top Canadian man, and Krista Duchesne, the top Canadian woman in 2:32. She had a very strong race, just 10 seconds off of her personal best.
This looks to me like it's Lucy and Jerry coming in here. Kenyan woman who lives and trains in Toronto, in the West End of Toronto. See her running around the High Park area quite a bit. She has a personal best of a 2:35, I believe, that she ran in Monterey quite a few years ago. But she's having a pretty good race today as well. And
Michael, we should talk a little bit about some of the other stories here. Ed Whitlock is one of them, and after in a minute we're going to talk a little bit more about him, but let's first hear some of Ed's pre-race comments.
Last year when I ran the race, I was pretty well fully trained. I really couldn't be in much better shape than I was then. But this year I managed to fall over last November and crack a rib. It took me 1 to 2 months to get over that, and then when I started to run again, my knees started to hurt, and so I'd have to stop and start again. That happened several times, so I really didn't get seriously training until about midsummer, really. And it's only in the last couple of weeks that I've managed to get up to running doing my training run of 3 hours a day. So I have a fair amount of training, but not quite as good as with less training than last year. I'm not anticipating I'm going to run as well as I did last year, unless the weather is very benign, because the weather was very tough last year, not very tough, it was a bit tough last year, and maybe it'll be easier this year, but from what I see of what's in the forecast, it doesn't sound as though it's going to be much, if any, better, but we will see. We will see what the day brings forth.
And welcome back to the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Mihira Lakshman alongside Michael Doyle, and we just saw a clip of Ed Whitlock there, 81 years old. He's running the marathon today, trying to break his record for 80 to 84-year-old marathoners of 3:15:54.
I was talking to race director Alan Brooks the other night, and he said that he feels like Ed Whitlock put this race on the map, made this race back in 2004. When he broke the when he ran that 3:15 we just saw there in the clip, and he was saying that the Kenyans that year were all just amazed. They couldn't believe that this guy, 80 years old in the 70s at the time, ran a 3:15 marathon.
2:54.
Oh, 2:54 rather. Sorry, that's right. When he did that, we broke the 3 hours. Incredible story. Originally from London, England. Has lived in Canada for a number of years now. He's sort of like he's a myth, a legend. He's larger than life, but such a nice man when you talk to him in person.
He's a very humble man, and Ed Whitlock has been around running since his teenage days. He was a very fast miler. Back in the day, actually trained with Roger Bannister, and was very competitive in England growing up. He had some injury problems in his 20s, took about a 10-year hiatus from running, then came back at it at a variety of distances. And Ed Whitlock has been an inspiration for many, showing that you can run at a pretty decent level into your 80s, which is amazing to think that he can qualify for Boston almost with the open standard. In fact, he would have, when he ran 2:54:48 in his 70s, would have qualified for the Boston Marathon Open.
Absolutely, in 2004 he certainly would have.
And Ed Whitlock certainly, as you mentioned, has helped put this race on the map. You had a chance to run alongside him on the same course, and was it? Oh, it was Milton.
It was his hometown race, the inaugural Milton Half Marathon. It was a few weeks ago, and Ed set out to set the record, and he did so on the day. I believe he ran a 1:38, and I ran back on the course and ran in the last few kilometers with him, and he's so smooth. Well, we've got something that just happened.
So just should mention, that was Marilyn Arsenault that just crossed the finish line. You could see she was struggling a bit, but she managed to get across. A very gutsy effort by Marilyn Arsenault in 2:42. She's had an incredible story. She tried to run this race 2 years ago, but was sidelined with a serious injury, and it took her a long time to recover, but has made it back to this stage in her marathon debut, crossing the line in 2:42. Now, of course, today was about more than the marathon and more than the half marathon. There was also a 5K earlier on this morning, and in that 5K we had Fauja Singh, 101 years old, the oldest runner in this race, hands down. Last year he ran the marathon, this year he ran the 5K. Let's take a look back at what happened earlier.
What is his goal this year? We know last year he wanted to break that big record. What's he hoping to do this year?
Well, he actually said he just wanted to thank everybody in Toronto. So this is like a farewell run, but the thing is, he just wants to come back and say thank you at a leisurely pace. That's why he's only doing a 5K, so everyone can join him. And although everyone is joining him, there's at least another 120 people wearing Sixth City t-shirt who are going to be running with him.
Wow. So how good does it feel when you see those people behind you, even at your age? I mean, what keeps you going? Is it them supporting you?
Bon, ils ont travaillé ça. Bâtien là, bien quoi là, ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਦੌੜਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਇਹੋ ਹੀ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਦੇਖਣ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿਹਤ ਮੇਰੀ ਦੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਦੌੜਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹੋ ਹੀ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ।
He says although people say he inspires them, they inspire him to keep on going. The media in particular, because they let everybody else know, and all the young people and others who are older. He just loves to be amongst people.
Ed Whitlock may be around the corner here. Ed Whitlock just crossed the line now. We can see him getting a hug from race director Alan Brooks. So getting in right around the 3:30 mark, right what Ed Whitlock was hoping to do, and draped around with the Canadian flag. What a scene here.
It looks like he just broke 3:30, so I mean that's exactly what he wanted to come out and do today. He's such a consistent performer. He's such a great runner, such a great ambassador for this sport, for the country, and for the city of Toronto.
Look at the smile on his face, Michael. Ed Whitlock, there's a poster right there, isn't there?
Well, not really. I was hoping to do better, but I ran out of steam. I overcooked it at the start and paid a horrible price at the finish.
But you smashed the record, didn't you?
Yes.
How did
you? All.
How did you do that?
Sheer stupidity, I guess.
How are you going to celebrate?
Celebrate? I don't know.
Ed, take us through the run. What was it like on the road?
I'm sorry.
Take us through the run. What was it like?
Well, I knew I was in trouble at halfway. I was feeling kind of, my legs were much heavier than they ought to be at that stage of proceedings, and I knew I was going to have a lot of trouble towards the finish, and that's the way it turned out.
With our live coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, Mihir Lakshman and alongside Michael Doyle of Canadian Running Magazine. And Michael, it was an interesting day out there. The wind wasn't a factor, but it certainly was wet and humid.
Yeah, it seemed to slow the times down, obviously, by a couple of minutes. The lead guys came in today to do something in the 206, 207. Instead, it was a hearty 210 effort. Very exciting race, a real runner's race. We were treated to quite a spectacle, especially in the last couple of kilometers.
Now, we just saw Ed Whitlock finish in about 3:30 or just under 3:30, so he met his goal. But to the men's and women's winners, we had an exciting finish along the stretch in both races. It was a three-man race, it seemed like, on the men's side. Batuna Warga, John Kiprotich, and Batura Sege coming down to the wire. Then in the final mile, they came up to a water station. Kiprotich missed his bottle, decided to go back for it, and that's when Warga surged.
Kiprotich is never going to miss a water station again in his life, especially in the earlier stages, because obviously there was something going on in the brain that was not quite right in that last couple of kilometers. The marathon had worn him down, and Warga, I love the move that he made. He did not hesitate. He saw the opening, he saw the moment of confusion, and he just turned and ran as hard as he could and put that huge gap on the two guys, and it was his victory.
So he won it in 2:10:35. The top Canadian was Matt Loisel in 2:16:23. On the women's side, Mary Davies came seemingly out of nowhere in the final kilometer to overtake Agnes Kiprop of Kenya. Kiprop led from 16K to 41K. Then Davies of New Zealand came through and ended up taking the victory in 2:28:56.
This has to be the race of Mary Davies' life. I mean, that unbelievable. Not only did she totally nail exactly what she came here to do, which was run a sub 2:30, she ran within herself and got the victory seemingly out of nowhere in the last couple of kilometers. Very smart running. Agnes Kiprop, it was her race to lose, and unfortunately she lost it.
Krista Duchesne of Brantford, Ontario, top Canadian in 4th place in 2:32:15. She went after the Canadian record, but faded a little bit over the second half of the race. Said she had a bit of a sore hip. Still a very strong race from her, only 9 seconds off of her personal best. So I think she can hold her head high after this effort. Now, Michael, we also had Wesley Korir with us, 2:06 marathoner, helping out with the coverage today. So we got to thank him. Of course, thank the sponsors: Scotiabank, Brooks Running Room, Michelob Ultra, Oasis, the Province of Ontario, Gatorade, Aquafina, Subway, City of Toronto, and Athletics Canada. Michael, thank you very much for your help today. Hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, this has been fantastic. I really like the new course, and I think this is a very interesting day for Canadian running, for Canadian marathoning.
And thank you for watching and participating in our live blog. For Michael Doyle, I'm Mihira Lakshman. Thanks for watching the 2012 coverage of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon.